Chapter 860. Ling Han stored everyone other than Feng Peyun and Helian Tianyun into the Black Tower, and then hurried on at lightning speed. The speed of a shattering void tier elite was obviously the fastest in the world. Helian Tianyun advanced into the shattering void tier half a month earlier than Ling Han, and with the almost unlimited supply of spirit medicine in the Black Tower, he also didn't have any cultivation checkpoints, and the amount of spirit medicine he ate could increase his cultivation by, so he was obviously extremely fast. Although I'm only in the first layer of the shattering void tier now, my battle prowess can rival 10 stars, and with Power of the Nation's support, my battle prowess can reach 18 stars. Ling Han tested his own strength as he ran. However, Power of the Nation's battle prowess support is indeed not a simple addition. Otherwise, my current limit of battle prowess should reach 19 stars, or even 20 stars. The higher the tier, the weaker the increase brought by the same power. This is very natural. Just like when I was still in the heaven tier, my own battle prowess was completely insignificant compared to the increase in Power of the Nation. 1 star in the shattering void tier is a world of difference. Going by this, if my own battle prowess reaches 20 stars, then with the current Power of the Nation, the increase in battle prowess brought to me would probably be at most 2 stars. However, the increase above the limit, even 1 star of battle prowess, is extremely terrifying. That's a qualitative change. 3 days later, they entered the Middle State, and also entered the territory of the Purple Moon Empire. Instantly, Ling Han and Feng Peyun both lost the support of Power of the Nation, and suddenly lost powerful strength, making them feel a sense of loss and emptiness. Ling Han was not used to it for a while, then suddenly came to a realization, and said, Power of the Nation is indeed a good thing, but it can only be used as a support, and must not be cultivated into dependence. Feng Peyun also nodded solemnly. What martial artists pursued was their own strength, after all. If you relied too much on Power of the Nation, then wouldn't you not go to places where Power of the Nation wasn't strong enough? Then, exploring ancient sites and the like would have nothing to do with you. The 3 of them came all the way to the Imperial City, and stopped outside the city. They let out the people in the Black Tower, then delivered the letter of credence, and went through the formal visiting etiquette. Ma Duo Bao sent out the Heavenly Astral King to welcome the people of Great Ling Empire into the Imperial Palace. Congratulations, Great Ling King, you've finally advanced into the Shattering Void tier, Heavenly Astral King said to Ling Han with a smile. He remembered that when he first met Ling Han, the latter's strength was beneath his notice, but he didn't expect him to reach the same level as him so quickly. Of course, he was full of confidence in his own combat strength. He believed that if Ling Han truly wanted to be on equal footing with him, he would need at least 100 years to improve and polish his realm. Ling Han chuckled and said, after half a year, Heavenly Astral King is still as elegant as ever. After exchanging some pleasantries, they entered the palace together. Sky splitting was set for 3 days later. At this time, countless influential families from all over the Central Plains rushed over. They were all proud of being qualified to enter the Imperial Palace. The current Purple Moon Empire was too domineering. In the battle with the Heaven's Sword sect, the 5 sects suffered a crushing defeat, which also established Ma Duo Bao's reputation of invincibility. The first killing formation in the world, battle prowess of Shattering Void tier 20 stars. Thus, when many women heard that Ma Duo Bao still didn't have an empress or an imperial concubine, they all became restless, wanting to take down this vast land's most precious bachelor and ascend to the heavens in one step. Ma Duo Bao was making the final preparations. These few days, he didn't see anyone and was clearing his mind, adjusting his state to its peak. Ling Han naturally understood this. If it were him, he would also do the same. After all, this was an unprecedented, magnificent feat. Aside from Ling Han, no one else knew that the lower realm had already experienced splitting open the skies once. This was too inconceivable. Even the ultimate elites of the immortal realm could not do it, so it was even more unimaginable for the lower realm. Ling Han and the others were arranged to stay in an elegant courtyard. Heavenly Astral King stayed to say a few words, then bid farewell and left. After all, there were too many guests now, and the 7 kings were all busy. However, Flame King, Great Water King, and the other 6 kings still took the time to come and reminisce with Ling Han. After all, everyone fought side by side, and Ling Han even received Ma Duobao's appreciation. 3 days later, they were invited out, and arrived at the sky-splitting platform that had been built long ago. This place was like a coliseum, with stone chairs all around. The center was empty, and a large axe gleaming with cold light was placed there. Mountain and river axe. Later, Ma Duobao would pick up the mountain and river axe to split open the skies, and everyone else would sit and watch. Ling Han and the other 50 or so people were led by an imperial guard towards the highest level of the sky-splitting platform. This was the most honorable position, and Ma Duobao left it for Ling Han. No one could stand side by side with him. The 7 kings patrolled around the sky-splitting platform. Today was a big day for the Purple Moon Empire, and they had to be on guard against the 5 sects, Thousand Corpse sect, or the sea race coming out to cause trouble. Hey, you guys move aside, because they had to arrange as many positions as possible. The walkway here was very narrow. On such an occasion, who dared to fly in the sky? This was a great disrespect. Thus, as they moved, it was very easy for 2 groups to fight over the path. If it was only 2 people, then giving way to each other was a small matter, but if there were a few dozen people, then giving way would take a long time. Most importantly, martial artists all wanted face, so why should I give way to you and not you give way to me? Ling Han and the others were now blocked by a group of people. There were also quite a lot of people on that side, about 20 or so, all youngsters, each with an air of insufferably arrogant arrogance. This was very natural, they were the Lu family. The Lu family could be said to have established a glorious era. The clan's ancestor broke through to the shattering void tier 4 years ago, becoming one of the strongest elites in the vast lands. In the Lu family's younger generation, the clan's ancestor was the world's #1 elite, allowing them to do whatever they wanted. Coming here to watch the ceremony was fuck you giving face to the Purple Moon Empire, okay? Now, there were actually people who dared to fight over their path. They were tired of living. Even daring to fight over our path. Who do you think you are? Hurry and kneel, looking at you guys is annoying. Quite a few youngsters immediately berated, their faces full of arrogance. Previously, when the ancestor was in the heaven tier, they were already arrogant enough, and now, they were obviously even more unbridled. How dare you? Ken Yi and the others all drew their weapons. Daring to be disrespectful to their king, they were courting death. However, Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, "Today is Brother Ma's big day, don't use force." Yes. Everyone obeyed. At least you're sensible. The youngsters of the Lu family all laughed loudly, and with Ling Han giving way like this, they didn't have the thought of making Ling Han and the others kneel, and swaggered off, arriving at their designated seats. As they walked, they were still talking about what happened just now, in high spirits. They only felt that the clan's ancestor was awesome as expected, they didn't even announce their clan's surname, and the other party was already terrified. What happened? The Lu family's ancestor and a few important figures of the clan had already sat down, but these younger generation couldn't sit still, and wherever beautiful women appeared, they would go strike up a conversation. Those youngsters laughed and talked, obviously disdainful of Ling Han and the others. The Lu family's ancestor inadvertently turned his head, and his face couldn't help but twitch. Immediately, he became solemn and said, "The group you're talking about, is it them?" He pointed at Ling Han and the others. In reply to the ancestor, "It's them." Those youngsters all nodded. I'm going to beat you to death." The Lu family's ancestor almost couldn't catch his breath, and immediately slapped the group of youngsters. Chapter 861. Others didn't know, but Feng Peyun was one of the few shattering void tier rogue cultivators, so how could Lu family's old ancestor not know? There were quite a lot of legends about this master. Moreover, Feng Peyun cultivated sword heart, and had the reputation of being invincible among his peers, not to mention that Lu family's old ancestor just stepped into the Shattering Void tier. Even if he was also in the 5th layer of the Shattering Void tier, he admitted that he couldn't possibly be Feng Peyun's opponent. And how many Shattering Void tier elites did the other party have? 1, 2, 3, 4, there were 3 of them and a huge stone golem. You guys ate the true dragon's bile, aren't you finding a reason for Lu family's annihilation? Pa, Lu family's old ancestor gave these youngsters a beating, making them completely baffled. Until these people were covered in wounds, Lu family's old ancestor stopped, and said, "Don't heal, follow me to apologize." These youngsters just knew that the old ancestor was beating them because of Ling Han and the others, which made them puzzled. It wasn't like they hadn't been arrogant before. They had done things that were more exaggerated and overbearing than this countless times, but their families had never said a word of reprimand. Now, not only had they been severely beaten up, they even had to apologize. Who were these people? If you said they were awesome, why were they terrified just now? They were obviously afraid of Lu family. Old ancestor, why? Someone asked. He was Lu family's old ancestor's favorite descendant, and only he dared to ask at this time. The others also held their breaths in concentration, wanting to know the answer. Otherwise, it would be too unjust. You guys think that I'm invincible after breaking through to the Shattering Void tier? Lu family's old ancestor snorted, and said, "In the group you guys bullied just now, there were 4 Shattering Void tier elites, and at least one of them only needs one move to defeat me." Pooh! Those youngsters instantly spurted out in shock. How was this possible? In their eyes, the old ancestor was invincible, and even if he was a bit lacking, he was at least invincible. Shattering Void tier, standing at the top of the world, didn't need to fear anyone. Lu family's ancestor sighed internally. If he had no ties, then he indeed didn't have to be afraid of anyone. Wouldn't it be easy for a Shattering Void tier elite to run? But now, he had a family, business, and descendants, while Feng Peyun was all alone, so how could he not lower his head? He was waiting for Ling Han and the others to sit down. Then, he would immediately bring his men over to apologize. The people of the Lu family were all shocked because Ling Han's position was far above them. They had arrived at the highest point of the heaven-splitting platform and could look down on the whole audience. These seats could not be taken randomly. Every force had their considerations as to where they sat, and this was a kind of recognition from the Purple Moon Empire. And in this world, who dared to object to the Purple Moon Empire? Would you dare object to an elite with battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier? Below Ling Han, there was a large empty space. This was a kind of attitude of the Purple Moon Empire. There was no force that could be on equal footing with the Great Ling Empire, and there was not even one that was slightly inferior. Rather, there was a difference of quite a few levels. Seeing this scene, not to mention the Lu family's youngsters being unconvinced, even the Lu family's ancestor was somewhat displeased. He admitted that he was not Feng Peyun's opponent, but they were both in the Shattering Void tier, and he was only slightly inferior. They were on the same level. Now, not only were the two not on equal footing, but there was actually a difference of quite a few levels. This was looking down on him too much, wasn't it? Not only him, but the others also discovered it. Even in the middle state, there were not many Shattering Void tier elites. Apart from the 5 sets, only a few forces such as the Spirit Treasures Pavilion, the Alchemist Society, and the Cold Spear Association had elites of this level, but they still had some after all. Now, they were all a few heads shorter than Ling Han, looking up at him as if they were his subjects, which made them all feel displeased. The Lu family's ancestor instantly dispelled his original idea, and said inwardly, "Hee, a tall tree attracts the wind." With so many elites making a move, this old man can quietly observe the changes. If they are beaten down, then they obviously won't have the face to find trouble with the main family. Any force that had Shattering Void tier elites were unconvinced. What right did they have to be high and mighty? Feng Peyun was indeed very strong, but not to this extent. A shattering void tier elite walked onto the high platform, and said with a sneer, he, there's a volcano below some seats, and not everyone has the right to sit there. Otherwise, once the volcano erupts, they'll be burned to ashes. This was a veteran shattering void tier elite who had been famous for at least 500 or 600 years. Now, he was already in the 8th layer of the shattering void tier, but he was too old, and his chi and blood were declining, so his battle prowess actually couldn't reach 8 stars. However, in terms of qualifications, he was really impressive, and could be considered an old antique. So, he was the first to be unconvinced. I'm of noble character and prestige, yet I still have to sit below you guys. Do you guys have such qualifications? This elite's surname was Man, and his name was Man Jingyi. Now, he was already over 1,000 years old, and had less than 10 years left in his lifespan. Thus, he had a lot less scruples when doing things, and if he encountered a stronger opponent, he could put on an attitude of, if worst comes to worst, I'll take you down with me. The older he was, the more he cared about false reputation. As the saying went, a man lives with a face, and a tree lives with a bark, wasn't that so? Ling Han laughed, and said, it's fine, I can keep it down. Are you sure? Man Jingyi raised a white eyebrow. Old man is going to get serious. Although the old guy's chi and blood are declining, his tier is there, after all, the 8th layer of the shattering void tier. In the whole world, those with a higher tier than him can really be counted on one's fingers. Burning his chi and blood to the extreme in battle, old man can still display 8 stars of battle prowess, which is the strongest battle prowess in the world. Everyone nodded. Don't think that battle prowess above 9 stars of shattering void tier was easy. In the shattering void tier, it was too difficult to surpass tiers to battle, which was why there was the saying that 1 star was a world of difference. As strong as the Sword King and the others were, they could only surpass 3 or 4 stars to battle. Did they think that everyone in the world was such a genius? I'm sure. Ling Han said with a smile. Man Jingyi raised his hand, and said, then how about receiving this old man's move? Ling Han smiled, and said, all right, then I'll ask for guidance. In the sky, the 7 kings were all standing. Do you need help? Justice Mountain King asked. Heavenly Astral King shook his head, and said, being able to obtain His Majesty's high position, even if this boy's strength can't compare to ours, he can't possibly be defeated by this kind of trash. Moreover, his physique is the same as His Majesty's, so what if that old guy attacks? That's true. The other 6 kings all nodded, dispelling the idea of helping. Man Jingyi was a bit surprised. This youngster was really a newborn calf, thinking that after charging into the shattering void tier, he was invincible in the world. Today he'd let him know that old Ginger was spicier. He soared into the sky, and said, then let's fight. No matter how arrogant he was, he wouldn't dare to destroy the splitting skies platform. Not to mention Ma Duobao, any one of the 7 kings could deal with him. The old man cared so much about his face, so he obviously wouldn't want to be defeated in public. Chapter 862. They're going to fight, they're going to fight. The members of the Lu clan were excited. Naturally, they all hoped that Ling Han would be defeated. Ling Han smiled casually and stepped into the air. There seemed to be an invisible staircase in the sky, allowing him to ascend step by step until he arrived in the vast sky. Since you are older than me, I'll let you have 3 moves first. He hooked his finger. Arrogant Man Jing was so righteous that his white hair danced in the wind. He began to burn his chi and blood, deciding to fight with his utmost brilliance. He wanted to instantly defeat this youngster who didn't know how to be humble. Although it was indeed very impressive that you advanced into the shattering void tier at such a young age, you still had to know that there would always be people better than you. His aura continued to grow stronger, and reached battle prowess of 8 stars of shattering void tier, matching his cultivation level. Be suppressed. He flew out, suppressing Ling Han. Ling Han did not dodge or evade, allowing the other party to attack him. Pa! He was instantly slapped in the chest. Hiss, you call this letting me make 3 moves? The corners of everyone's mouths twitched. They simply couldn't believe their eyes. The so-called letting him have a few moves meant that he wouldn't take the initiative to fight back. He still had to block what he should block, and he still had to dodge what he should dodge. He definitely didn't mean that he wouldn't dodge, or parry, and just take it head-on. Shattering Void Tier elites didn't die because as long as Shattering Void Tier elites wanted to escape, basically no one could stop them. However, if you acted so recklessly, then Shattering Void Tier elites could also die very quickly. KO in 1 move. Absolutely. Ah! Man Jingyi screamed miserably. His arms trembled, and inconceivably twisted. His bones had been dislocated. What? Everyone could hardly believe their eyes. You fucking struck the other party with your palm, but the result was that your own arm was broken. What kind of logic was this? Pa Man Jingyi vibrated his origin power, putting the dislocated bone back into position. His face twitched, and his face was filled with disbelief. How could this be possible? His opponent had taken a palm strike from him, but not only was nothing happened to him, he had even dislocated his own bone. This defense is insane. 2 more moves, Ling Han said calmly. The whole place was silent, leaving only the sound of heavy breathing and the echo of Ling Han's words. Even the 7 kings were indescribably shocked. This kid's physique seems to have become stronger again. It was already at the level of level 10 precious metal before, then wouldn't it have advanced into godly metal now? Damn, who in this world can kill him? Don't even talk about killing them. Can anyone even hurt them? Man Jingyi's face was full of bitterness. Even if he could defeat Ling Han, so what? There wasn't even the slightest bit of brilliance. How could there be such a freak? It was no wonder that the other party would be arranged by the Purple Moon Empire in the highest position. Just based on that defensive power, who would dare to be unconvinced? He took a deep breath. There was no way out now. He could only hope that Ling Han's defense would not always be this strong. That way, he could recover a little and save some face. After a full 3 breaths of time, he unleashed a big move. Azure River's water flow, break through 10,000 miles. Hung, he drew upon the water essence of heaven and earth, transforming it into a black river that rushed towards Ling Han. Every drop of river water was condensed from pure origin power, and was as heavy as a mountain. If this black river hit solidly, then even an elite in the 9th layer of the Shattering Void Tier would be directly killed. Ling Han still stood in the air with his hands behind his back, without any intention of dodging. Hey, do I have to take this move head-on? The Clear Sun King drew in a cold breath. His battle prowess could definitely kill Man Jingyi instantly, but he definitely didn't dare to take the opponent's big move head-on. With godly metal level defense, it's just so willful. The Heavenly Astral King sighed. Physique was too difficult to cultivate. Although they also had some small accomplishments, they only reached the Heaven Tier level, and couldn't cross the final step at all. Hung, the Black River attacked and heavily hit Ling Han's body, instantly drowning him. In the heavy sound, the Black River poured down and rushed towards the heaven-splitting platform, which frightened countless people. Shattering Void Tier, and an 8th layer Shattering Void Tier ultimate move at that. Even if most Shattering Void Tier elites took it head-on, they would only be instantly killed. Let me. The Flame King's figure flashed, and appeared in front of the Black River. He stretched out his hand, and hung, flames rose, instantly burning the Black River into ashes. He originally had 15 stars of Shattering Void Tier battle prowess, and now, with the support of power of the nation, his battle prowess soared to 18 stars, so dispelling the ultimate move of Shattering Void Tier 8 stars was naturally a piece of cake. The disaster was resolved, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They didn't pay attention to the Flame King, the opponent being so strong was naturally within their expectations. The key was whether Ling Han was seriously injured after taking this move head-on, or was he completely unscathed like before. The Black River dispersed completely, and Ling Han was seen standing proudly. His whole body's qi and blood soared to the sky, like a furnace burning the heavens. This freak, Lu family's old ancestor, shivered. No, he had to immediately apologize to Ling Han. This kind of person was really scary, and if he bore a grudge, then Lu family would definitely be finished. Not to mention anything else, and only in terms of longevity, he still wasn't Ling Han's opponent. There's still one more move, Ling Han said with a smile, full of energy. Everyone came to a sudden realization. It wasn't that Ling Han was arrogant, but that he was indeed too strong. With such a physique, not to mention 3 moves, even if it was 300 moves, so what? Man Jingyi had no more ideas. He already used his strongest ultimate move, but still couldn't even hurt a hair on Ling Han's head, so what use would another move have? No need, I admit defeat, he said, his heart full of bitterness. In his life, it wasn't that he hadn't been defeated before, but within the same tier, an opponent made him raise his hands and surrender without a single move. This was the only time. To be able to rush to the shattering void tier, especially reaching the summit a few hundred years ago, what kind of genius was that? Man Jingyi was naturally arrogant, but now he had no choice but to admit his old age. This era no longer belonged to him. Thanks for letting me win, Ling Han said indifferently, not being overbearing in holding on to Man Jingyi. Man Jingyi turned around dejectedly and returned to his seat, but at this time, no one took another look at him, and all focused on Ling Han. This was a super new star. What, he's Ling Han, that heaven-grade alchemist. I really didn't think that there would be such a genius in the world, not only reaching the peak in alchemy, but also so terrifying in martial art. In the future, he will definitely be one of the rulers of the world. If His Majesty succeeds in splitting open the sky, we will all become immortal-level citizens, and at that time, we will receive the resources of the immortal realm to cultivate, and we may not lose to him. Exactly. Most people were positive about Ling Han, but there were also some who were narrow-minded, and were full of dissatisfaction with Ling Han. But now that Ling Han sat there again, no one had any objections. If you're not satisfied, then come at me with 3 moves. The Lu clan's ancestor hurriedly led the younger generation over, apologizing to Ling Han, and those young people finally knew that there was always someone better than them, and they all broke out in a cold sweat. With Ling Han's current strength, even if he killed all of them, would the ancestor dare to have any objections? Chapter 863. Interesting Romance. Ling Han was naturally unafraid. In fact, he couldn't even be bothered to pay any attention to her. He fished out a divine fruit and began to chew on it. This was only a level 2 divine fruit, so it wasn't all that valuable. However, Ling Han was really eating it like it was a fruit. This caused many people to exclaim in shock at his extravagance. Gan Shiyun almost exploded in fury. This guy was actually eating the fruit as if nothing had happened. He didn't take her threatening gaze seriously at all. Damn it! More and more people arrived, and when the sun reached its zenith, there was finally no one else. There were people sitting on all the stones, but there were also some people standing. These were all followers, and they were standing around the platform. They didn't have the right to walk to the front. The number of stones definitely corresponded to the number of seeds. There were no empty seats here, so it was clear that everyone had come to this tea tasting and Tao discussion today. This was the first gathering of seeds, so everyone was very interested in each other. Moreover, every seed was brimming with confidence. They believed that they were invincible, so they naturally wanted to use this opportunity to establish their own status. Ha, everyone's here. A man stood up and smiled at everyone. Perhaps there are still people who don't know who I am, so let me introduce myself. I'm He Tao, and I entered the sect 900 years ago. This guy is very, very powerful, Ling Han thought. His aura wasn't obvious, and it was as deep as the sea. It was extremely likely that he had formed 5 mountains and rivers, which was why he possessed such an obscure yet powerful aura. If this had been the joint peace planet, Ling Han wouldn't have thought this way. However, this was the majestic heaven sect, and countless top-notch prodigies were gathered here. Moreover, Elder Hai Yun had also said that, including him, there were a total of 7 seeds who had formed 5 mountains and rivers in the sect. And this was only among those at the mountain-river tier. If this expanded to the sun-moon tier, there would definitely be even more people. So, he's He Tao. Among the seeds of the mountain-river tier, his strength can easily rank in the top 5. Look, the one beside him is Wu Zhe. He's also a seed-level super-elite, and he can stand shoulder to shoulder with He Tao. In addition to Wu Wentong, Shi Angua, Shen Zhu, and Kuang Pei Shan, they are collectively known as the 6 young king tiers. There were people conversing in low voices, and Ling Han understood after listening to their conversation. These so-called 6 kings were the elites among the mountain river tier disciples of the majestic heaven sect who had formed 5 mountains and rivers. We're here to taste tea and discuss Tao, so of course there must be tea. He retrieved a small stove from his spatial spirit tool. He then placed a teapot on top of it, and began to boil some tea. He wasn't using ordinary flames. Instead, he was using blazing flames from his palms. There were divine patterns intertwining on these flames, and he was actually using the regulations of the great Tao as the source of the flames. Under such divine flames, ordinary metals would definitely be instantly melted. Moreover, with his strength, perhaps even level 4 godly metal could slowly be melted into molten iron. However, although this stove appeared small and exquisite, and its appearance was nothing special, it possessed extremely strong resistance to fire. It was completely unaffected by the divine flames. This stove is extraordinary, Ling Han thought. He didn't have any thoughts of taking this god tool. He only had a single thought in his mind. He would cleave it and use it to raise the quality of his divine demon sword. Theoretically speaking, the water in the stove should be boiling in no time with such divine flames. However, 30 minutes had passed, yet there was still not a single wisp of steam rising from the mouth of the stove. This made one suspect that there wasn't any water in the pot at all. There's extreme night frigid ice inside. If we want to melt it, it'll take quite some time, He Tao said with a smile. However, we'll still have to hold the tea tasting and Tao discussion for 3 to 5 days, so let's discuss Tao first. We can drink the tea later. What? Extreme night frigid ice? A considerable number of people exclaimed in astonishment. The others didn't know what it was, and they only understood after someone explained it to them. Extreme night frigid ice only forms in the extreme north of the flying cloud planet. That place is bone-piercingly cold, and it's covered in ice and snow all year round. Beneath the ice and snow, there are terrifying holes everywhere. Once one steps into one of those holes, it's possible that they'll fall into the holes and be sealed in ice forever. Even elites of the sun-moon tier aren't willing to go there. After all, there aren't any precious godly medicines there, and there aren't any extremely valuable demonic beasts either. However, extreme night frigid ice is an extremely rare specialty. It's formed from the unique great Tao of the extreme north, and one can comprehend a sliver of the wonders of ice by drinking its water. Ordinary mountain river tier cultivators would be frozen into ice if they touched it. Even if they didn't die, they'd be severely wounded. As expected of senior brother he actually managed to obtain extreme night frigid ice. How astonishing! Although the prodigies weren't willing to admit defeat, the truth was right in front of them. If they didn't even have the courage to admit the gap between them, how could they possibly surpass their opponent? Thus, everyone looked at He Tao with admiration. He Tao smiled faintly as he boiled some water, and said, I was also lucky. I was chasing an extreme plain ice fox, and that's why I entered an ice cave and plucked a few pieces of extreme night frigid ice. After pondering for a while, I decided to bring them back to brew some tea for my junior brothers and sisters. Someone was curious, and he whispered, "It's such a small pot. Each of us can't even drink half a cup, right?" The cup he was referring to was the extremely small teacup that could be drunk in a single sip. "Don't worry," He Tao said with a smile. "This pot has its own space. Although it's not too big, I'm sure it'll be enough to drink." Wu Zhe interrupted, and said, "Brother, he has contributed extreme night frigid ice as tea, so I can't be stingy either. Here are a few serene poplar tea leaves. We'll use them to brew tea later." Pooh! Many people spluttered, and expressions of excitement appeared on their faces. The serene poplar tea could definitely be considered a treasure. It could help cultivators comprehend Tao, and even Sun Moon tier elites might not necessarily be able to afford it. As expected of a king tier, anything he casually took out would be enough to render others speechless. Only the Rain Emperor and Ding Ping remained unmoved. What a joke! The serene poplar tea leaves were nothing. In terms of the effect of comprehending Tao, was it more impressive than the reincarnation tree? 1 day of comprehension was equivalent to 1 year of comprehension. Could this serene poplar tea achieve that? Moreover, one could comprehend Tao under the reincarnation tree every day, and how many serene poplar tea leaves were there? However, the tea leaves are limited. There are only 10. How about this? The top 10 people in this Tao sparring session can each bring a leaf with their tea. What do you think? Although all 10 tea leaves would be placed into the teapot in the end, and the tea would have a very good effect of comprehending Tao, would the effect be the same if they brought another tea leaf with them? Everyone nodded, and rubbed their palms together. Since this was a Tao sparring session, it was naturally those who were stronger in cultivation who would be able to obtain the most benefits. This was also an unchanging truth of the cultivation world. The strong were king. I am Xianjin. Which junior brother or junior sister would like to come forward and give me some pointers? A young man leaped out first, and immediately referred to junior brother or junior sister as soon as he spoke. It was clear that he was brimming with confidence, and thought that his strength was enough to be a senior brother. "Ha, I'll go." Another young man leaped out. "Please." The two of them bowed to each other, and then immediately began to battle. The battle was very intense. Chapter 864. From the perspective of the Eye of Heavenly Tao, it was definitely very depressed. It was the embodiment of the world's will, yet it had been repeatedly injured. This was unprecedented. But it didn't have its own will, and it wouldn't really get angry. It just activated the power of the world and launched a counterattack against Ma Duobao. Too weak. Ma Duobao smirked coldly. The mountain and river axe swung about, slashing at the Eye of Heavenly Tao, forcing it to retreat step by step. Actually, it wasn't that the Eye of Heavenly Tao was weak, but rather that Ma Duobao, who was unleashing his full power, was too strong to the point that even the Eye of Heavenly Tao couldn't rival him. The Eye of Heavenly Tao was continuously sent flying, and this was clearly seen by the people below. They all raised their voices and shouted, cheering for Ma Duobao. "My emperor is mighty. Our emperor is domineering. Our emperor is invincible." In the vast lands, everyone was filled with reverence towards the Eye of Heavenly Tao. This was the embodiment of the will of heaven and earth, and no one dared to disrespect it. If one did too many atrocious things, it was possible that they would draw out the Eye of Heavenly Tao to kill them, which meant that they were dead for sure. But now, the Eye of Heavenly Tao was being violently abused. This naturally caused everyone to feel overjoyed in their hearts. It was as if a serf had turned over and become its master. They were all so excited that their scalps went numb. They shouted hysterically as if they were the fatty who was showing off his might. Ma Duobao was getting more and more powerful. With a swing of his axe, he was able to make the Eye of Heavenly Tao retreat several dozen kilometers. His advantage was already very obvious. But the Eye of Heavenly Tao had no choice but to fight. Previously, though the two great elites of the Rock Palace had whipped it to the point that it didn't want to, they didn't want to split open the skies, nor did they threaten the existence of the vast lands. But now, it was different. Ma Duobao's actions concerned whether it could still exist or not. Thus, the Eye of Heavenly Tao had no path of retreat and could only fight. This was the meaning of its existence. Not fighting meant death. The Eye of Heavenly Tao shone. This was the resistance of the whole lower realm. It grew infinitely larger, and multiple golden chains shot out from the eyeball. These were formed from the power of the realm, and represented the regulations of the realm. In theory, the power of the entire heaven and earth must be greater than that of any single individual, because all the power you obtained came from this heaven and earth, so how could you surpass it? 20 stars of strength is the limit. However, since there was talk of splitting open the skies, it was naturally not completely hopeless. The Eye of Heavenly Tao's maximum battle prowess was only 22 stars, while the person who split open the skies could draw power from the power of the nation and have a wider space for improvement. As the saying goes, there is always a way out. However, how terrifying was the combat power of 22 stars? Bang bang bang, the chains of realm force continuously lashed out, as if they were weaving a net in the sky that could strangle and kill any creature that resisted. Ma Duobao was indeed very strong, but 22 stars of battle prowess was already his limit. Although it was enough to contend against him now, there was a limit to a person's strength. Once his strength was exhausted, he would be killed by the Eye of Heavenly Tao. Your Majesty. The 7 kings murmured softly, their expressions incomparably nervous. Countless years ago, they had also reached this step. In the end, Ma Duobao had not been able to break through his limits and had been forced to give up on splitting open the sky. Moreover, in order to avoid the punishment of the Eye of the Heavenly Tao, they had sealed themselves with the time liquid. Was he going to repeat the same mistake and nurse a grudge again? Hee. So much time has passed. Do you think I haven't improved at all? Ma Duobao let out a long whistle. His body shook, and his entire body actually elongated. He wasn't short to begin with, and was about the same height as an ordinary person. It was just that his horizontal width was too shocking, which made him look short. But now, his horizontal width was rapidly shrinking, and his body was growing taller. In that instant, he had reached a height of 3 meters. His figure was slender, and he didn't look fat at all. This was a handsome, stalwart, and extraordinary man. Boss. The 7 kings all had tears streaming down their cheeks. This was their king, handsome to the point that they were jealous. Ma Duobao had not only become fatter. With a loud roar, even more power of the nation surged into his body, pushing his battle prowess to increase once again. Hong! It was as if his body was about to explode. At first, he was only slender, but now he was shockingly sturdy. Every muscle was trembling, as if about to erupt with a power that could destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. 23 stars of battle prowess. Ling Han came to a sudden realization, and said, "This fatty has cultivated an extraordinary technique, causing him to appear shockingly fat normally. Actually, it's a special kind of body refinement technique that increases his body's endurance by a large margin." For a genius like Ma Duobao, after experiencing the failure of splitting open the sky once, would he still follow the same pattern and try again? In the shattering void tier, a single star was a world apart. The Eye of Heavenly Tao had already reached its peak battle prowess, and Ma Duobao was probably the same as well. The veins on his forehead were bulging, and it was believed that he couldn't maintain this kind of battle prowess for too long. But Ma Duobao had a suppression of 1 star of battle prowess, and this was too crucial. Hung. As the mountain and river axe slashed, the Eye of Heavenly Tao was continuously sent flying. The place that had been broken twice in a row suddenly split open, and fresh blood dripped down. Long live! Below, the cheers were like an ocean. Even Ling Han's blood was boiling. Though the Eye of Heavenly Tao had been injured twice before, those were the attacks of immortals, but now, it was finally injured in the hands of a mortal. Battle prowess of 23 stars of shattering void tear could even suppress the Eye of Heavenly Tao. The Eye of Heavenly Tao bled, and a rain of blood also floated between heaven and earth. This was the sorrow of heaven and earth. I, today, shall slaughter the heavens and establish a nation. Ma Duobao laughed loudly, full of heroic spirit. The mountain and river axe exuded a brilliant light, slashing until the wound on the Eye of Heavenly Tao became bigger and bigger. Originally, even if the Eye of Heavenly Tao was no match for him, it wouldn't have been defeated so quickly, but after being injured by an ultimate elite twice, it had actually suffered a great loss of vitality. Now, encountering the battle prowess of 23 stars of shattering void tear, it was finally overwhelmed. The Eye of Heavenly Tao retreated step by step, and the heavens wept blood, but there was also the sound of a bull's horn reverberating between heaven and earth, making one's blood boil. This was an encouragement for heroes. Splitting open the skies was the greatest feat of a small world. Die for me. Ma Duobao gave a battle cry, and the mountain and river axe swung out with the most brilliant strike. Hong! The Eye of Heavenly Tao was actually forcibly slashed open. Endless fresh blood sprayed out, turning into two halves that fell from the skies. As it fell, it was still burning, and before it had even landed on the ground, it had already been burnt to ashes. Ma Duobao put away his axe, and looked towards the skies. Now that the obstacle had been swept away, as long as he could break open the realm wall and slash out a large enough gap, he would be able to bring this piece of heaven and earth into the immortal realm. Open, he shouted loudly, raising the mountain and river axe high up, and slashed fiercely towards the skies. One strike after another, 23 stars of battle prowess blasted out without holding back. The heaven and earth were torn apart, and it was no longer the darkness of the void. Instead, a gray haze appeared, extremely hazy. Through this haze, everyone could faintly see a new world. Was that the immortal realm? Ma Duobao became even more valiant, and the mountain and river axe slashed wildly, determined to split open that haze. It was opening, it was opening, it was really going to open. That piece of heaven and earth was becoming clearer and clearer. Ling Han couldn't help but feel excited as well. He clenched his fists, appearing to be very nervous. Shua, but it was at this moment that a flash of sword light actually slashed out from that piece of heaven and earth, directly slashing towards Ma Duobao. Chapter 865. This strike slashed out a sword ray that was 3,000 meters long, like a divine chain. It was too sudden. Who would have thought that there would be an attack coming from the opposite world? Moreover, the power of this strike was extremely terrifying, definitely surpassing 20 stars of shattering void tear. A sword ray that was 3,000 meters long, as if it could destroy heaven and earth. An expert of the 5 sects. Ling Han suddenly stood up, his eyes filled with killing intent. As expected, the 5 sects weren't inactive, but were lying in ambush to deliver a fatal blow at this moment. Ling Han heard Yi Shuang say that if it was just breaking open the void, then the corresponding divine realm from here would be where the 5 sects were. Thus, the 5 sects could set up a killing formation in the corresponding space, and no shattering void tier cultivator in the vast lands could come out alive. However, if it was splitting open the skies, then as long as it was successful, the entire land would enter the divine realm, which would trigger the rules of the divine realm and randomly send the vast lands to some corner of the divine realm. At least, this great formation definitely couldn't block the power of splitting open the skies, and would definitely collapse immediately. But now, the skies hadn't opened yet, and the 5 sects of the divine realm used this opened gap to launch an attack. As long as Ma Duobao was killed, then this splitting open the skies would naturally fail. This was definitely an attack launched by an immortal, or else it definitely couldn't surpass 20 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess. Moreover, an attack launched from the divine realm, even if it passed through the gap created by splitting open the skies, would still receive a huge reduction. Otherwise, with a strike from an immortal, who in the lower realm could block it? But even so, the power of this strike was indescribably strong. Could Ma Duobao block it? One had to know that he was splitting open the skies, and was already under immense pressure. Ma Duobao snorted coldly, and brandished the mountain and river axe to meet it. Pooh! With a muffled sound, the sword ray struck, and Ma Duobao was instantly sent flying several hundred meters away. In the high-speed friction, the surrounding air was set ablaze, forming a long belt of flames, like a fire dragon. Blocked. But the problem was, the split sky above his head was also closing. Ma Duobao hurriedly brandished the axe towards the sky. Shwa, 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 after a few strikes, the sky split open again, but at this moment, another sword ray swept past, slashing towards him. Left with no choice, Ma Duobao could only brandish the axe to meet it, but in this way, his previous efforts were wasted, and the gap of heaven and earth was closing again. This move by the five sects was truly ruthless. Are you going to block it? If he blocked it, the heavens would not be able to open. If he didn't block it, that person would be heavily injured or even killed, and he still wouldn't be able to split open the sky. Ling Han frowned. This wasn't good. The five sects were actually so shameless, directly intervening with their status as deities. Moreover, they were far away in the immortal realm, separated by a great formation. Who could break through the formation and restrain them? If he had such strength, he wouldn't be able to split open the sky with just one hand. This seemed to have become an unsolvable problem. Ma Duobao was like a trapped beast, continuously slashing at the sky, and at the same time resisting the attacks of the immortal realm. However, his current battle prowess had been forcibly raised by a secret technique, so it was impossible for him to maintain it for long. Thus, when his battle prowess fell, split the heavens would naturally fail. That was what the five sects wanted. If you couldn't enter the god realm, you wouldn't be able to become a god. If you couldn't become a god, your lifespan would at most be 1,000 years or so, and you would eventually die. Your Majesty. The seven kings soared into the sky at the same time, wanting to lend their king a hand. Back down. Ma Duobao shouted. Although the seven kings were only 4 or 5 stars of battle prowess weaker than him, the battle prowess raised above the limit was like heaven and earth, so how could they afford to be 4 or 5 stars apart? If the seven kings went to face the attacks of the immortal realm, they wouldn't be able to block it at all. They would all die under one strike, and Ma Duobao would instead be greatly grieved, and his battle prowess would naturally fluctuate, making the result even worse. With this shout, the seven kings instantly stopped. They were just anxious before, but now they immediately came back to their senses, knowing that helping would only have the opposite effect. Now, unless someone could reach 20 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess, no, 20 stars wasn't enough. No matter what, it had to be 22, 23 stars to be able to share the pressure with Ma Duobao. But looking at the vast lands, was there such a supreme elite? No, there wasn't a single one. Ma Duobao could only struggle alone, or give up on splitting open the sky. It was really a difficult choice. I said to split open the sky, so today it must be split open. Ma Duobao said sternly. Hong, his whole body emitted a blazing white brilliance, and actually paid no heed to the attacks of the immortal realm, only swinging his axe with all his might to split open the sky. Pu, Piu, Piu, sword rays continuously slashed onto his body, and fresh blood sprayed out, but Ma Duobao acted as if he didn't feel it, and continued swinging his axe. As long as a large enough gap was opened, the vast lands would struggle free from the small world under the suction force of the immortal realm, and under the impact of a continent, that so-called Great Formation would also shatter upon contact. Under the rules of the immortal realm, the vast lands would appear somewhere and become a new immortal land, and the chances of it still being within the five sects' territory was definitely less than 1 in a billion. The immortal realm was too big. This was the only hope, Your Majesty. The 7 kings all called out in trembling voices. Ma Duobao had already used the last of his strength. This was his trump card as the world's #1 killing formation, using the source of the killing formation to protect himself, and forcibly maintaining his state. This was success or death. Below, it was absolutely silent. Everyone was shocked by Ma Duobao's actions, and a strong sense of tragedy rose up within them. In the immortal realm, they were only tiny ants, and their only value was to be plucked and concocted into alchemy. But now, Ma Duobao was using his own actions to tell the people of the world, to tell the immortal realm that they were not ants. They, too, would make the sound of resistance, and throw out their fists of resistance. We are humans. Shatter this sky. Go, Your Majesty. Long live Your Majesty. You have to succeed. After a short period of silence, there was a tsunami of shouts. The unity of will was an impregnable stronghold, and the shouts seemed to want to tear the skies apart. Ling Han, Feng Peyun, Helian Tianyun, and the others all stood up. At this time, no one could sit still anymore. They all raised their heads to look at the sky, looking at that lonely yet imposing figure resisting the heaven and earth and the immortals. Whether Ma Duobao succeeded or not, this figure would forever be imprinted in everyone's hearts. Open, open, open. Ma Duobao entered a state of madness. As the mountain and river axe continued to cleave, the gap between heaven and earth became larger and larger, and the entire continent also rumbled loudly as if it was about to be uprooted from the ground. Is splitting open the skies about to succeed? I feel the earth trembling, as if we are flying towards the immortal realm. His Majesty has succeeded, splitting open the skies is a success, we are about to ascend to the immortal realm. Everyone spoke one after another, excited to the point that their scalps were numb, and even their words were trembling. Ling Han used the eye of truth to see clearly. He was so naive that he was about to split open. Now, there was only a thin layer left, but he seemed to be able to see the heaven and earth of the immortal realm clearly, as well as that boundless spiritual chi that was about to arrive. Shua, it was at this moment that a sword ray slashed into Ma Duobao's body. Everyone was indifferent, because Ma Duobao had already been slashed countless times before, but he had forcefully endured them all. They believed that this time would not be an exception. However, after this strike, the mountain and river axe that Ma Duobao had brandished did not manage to continue slashing. Only that final blow was left. Chapter 866. Your Majesty, the 7 kings exclaimed. Your Majesty, the subjects below exclaimed. Ling Han's brows furrowed tightly. He possessed the eye of truth, and could see very clearly that Ma Duobao's life force was rapidly slipping away. Previously, Ma Duobao had withstood the attacks of countless swords by force, and used his life force to refine them, but there was a limit to this. And the opponent was an immortal, a true immortal. Even if the attacks were largely nullified by the realm power, they were still incredibly terrifying. More importantly, the more the sky was split open, the weaker the realm power would be on the attacks from the immortal realm, and the greater the blow to Ma Duobao. This sword had finally reached the critical point. Veins throbbed on Ma Duobao's forehead. He gritted his teeth, and swung the axe again. Pooh! But at this moment, a sword ray once again slashed onto his body. Shua, this time, the axe lost its aim, and slashed towards another place. Ma Duobao's figure swayed a few times, and he managed to raise the axe, but a third sword ray attacked, slashing onto his body. Peng! Ma Duobao was instantly sent flying over 300 meters. His whole body floated in the air, and after a long while, he managed to move his fingers, and gripped the mountain and river axe tightly, wanting to struggle to his feet. Below, everyone's hearts seemed to be stuffed with something, suffocating them to the point of panic. Some even shed tears. Your Majesty, enough. Next time, we'll split open the sky next time. Your Majesty, you will die. Ma Duobao slowly crawled to his feet, but before he could swing his axe, another sword ray slashed over, sending him flying again. This elite of the immortal realm seemed to have done this deliberately, attacking when Ma Duobao crawled to his feet. This was a warning to Ma Duobao and the people of the world. This was the consequence of opposing the immortal realm. And this was also a kind of provocation. So what if I want to destroy your hope? Your fate is to be refined into a realm pill, and no matter how you resist, it is useless. Ling Han's brows were already furrowed deeply. He swore in his heart that after entering the immortal realm, he would definitely flatten the 5 sects, and none of those who should pay the price would escape. He had never wanted to kill so much before, and it was a massacre, but now, his killing intent was boiling. Little Tower, do you have any ideas? Ling Han asked in his mind. Damn it, now the Black Tower couldn't give him a boost of power, or else his power would reach the immortal level. Even if he was expelled to the immortal realm, he still had to save Ma Duobao. In any case, he had the Black Tower, and that great formation shouldn't be able to strangle him to death. Small Tower shook its head lightly, and said, if I was still in my peak condition, it would naturally be a piece of cake for me to kill the brat in front of me with the power of piercing through realms, but I can't now. Was there nothing he could do but watch as Ma Duobao died? In the distant sky, where the wall of 2 realms had been broken open, a figure appeared. It was a middle-aged man with a treasured sword in his hand. 3 miniature suns and moons floated above his head. Even though he was so far away and there was still the wall of 2 realms, one could still sense his powerful aura. It was as if he could destroy all living beings in this world with just a glance. An ultimate elite of the Sun-Moon tier. Ling Han immediately said in his mind. This was naturally what Yi Shuang had told him. Suns and moons hovering above one's head, this was the sign of the Sun-Moon tier, but of course, it could also be concealed. The other party obviously disdained to do so. Only this kind of ultimate elite's attack could pass through the 2 realms and retain its power. If it were Mountain River tier, then the attack would have long since been smoothed out by the power of the realm. This middle-aged man's face was filled with disdain. That was a kind of disdain on the level of life, looking down on all living beings as if they were a bunch of ants, and not living beings that were on equal footing with him. Ma Duobao crawled up again, but this time, he didn't try to split open the skies. Instead, he stood solemnly between heaven and earth like a statue. However, the elites already knew that Ma Duobao had already suffered serious injuries that couldn't be recovered from. Those were cuts made by an elite of the immortal realm, and he would soon die. Hee, now it's time for me to clean up the mess. Amidst the laughter, a young man with a magnificent figure could be seen striding over from afar. One step was a few dozen miles, astonishingly fast. Ao Jian Ma Duobao was already an arrow at the end of its flight, and the fire of life was about to be extinguished. Now that a supreme elite with battle prowess close to 20 stars of shattering void tier had appeared, he naturally could make a clean sweep. The immortal realm, as expected, wasn't sitting still, but had set up a simple trap. It was really simple. An elite of the immortal realm would ambush Ma Duobao in the immortal realm, and after severely injuring Ma Duobao, Ao Jian would come out to clean up the mess. The 2 of them would settle everything. Who can stop me? Ao Jian laughed loudly. He had battle prowess of 19 stars of shattering void tier, and was a descendant of the dragon race. His physique was as tough as 10th tier rare metal, and he was practically invincible in this realm. Now that Ma Duobao was also about to die, who could really stop him? Everyone gritted their teeth in hatred, but without strength, what use was hatred alone? Listen to my command. Ma Duobao suddenly spoke at this moment. From this moment onwards, the Purple Gold Empire will be merged into the Great Ling Empire. All soldiers and civilians of the Purple Gold Empire will be soldiers and civilians of the Great Ling Empire. Your Majesty. The 7 kings and the officials all cried out in grief. This was Ma Duobao making arrangements for his funeral. Ling Han, everything is in your hands. You have to shoulder this burden. Ma Duobao fixed his eyes on Ling Han, and suddenly waved his hand. Shua, the mountain and river axe was thrown towards Ling Han. What was thrown was not an axe, but also a responsibility. Ling Han stretched out his hand. Pa, he caught the mountain and river axe, and said solemnly, "Don't worry, I will definitely succeed in splitting open the skies, and flatten the 5 sects and the Ao clan." This was his promise. Hong, the image of a black tower appeared in his body, and flew towards Ma Duobao. Meanwhile, a sword-shaped image also flew out of Ma Duobao's body. The image of the black tower bit towards the sword image, and disappeared in a single gulp. Instantly, the sword-shaped totem in the sky above the Purple Moon Empire disappeared, and in its place was the totem of the Black Tower. This was equivalent to a national war. The Purple Moon Empire was defeated, and the Great Ling Empire was victorious. In that instant, the 7 kings all lost the boost from the power of the nation, and their battle prowess dropped greatly. On the other hand, the power of the nation that Ling Han, Feng Peyun, and the others obtained increased by tons. The size of the middle state was comparable to the sum of the 4 regions. Even if the hearts of the people were not united yet, merely the power of the nation brought about by the expansion of the territory was already very powerful. Ma Duobao closed his eyes in relief. His tall body immediately fell from the sky, and the crack in the heaven and earth that he opened up was also rapidly fusing back together. Before he even landed on the ground, it had already completely recovered. Splitting open the skies failed, and Ma Duobao died. The 7 kings hurriedly rushed out and caught Ma Duobao, all of their faces covered in tears. In the surroundings, everyone was filled with sorrowful emotions, feeling an indescribable blockage in their hearts. "Don't be so sorrowful, because many more people will die here today," Ao Jian said with a cold smile. He pointed at Ma Duobao's corpse, and said, "Give this person's corpse to me. Daring to make an enemy of the immortal realm, I will grind his bones and scatter his ashes." Bullshit. The 7 kings were all furious. "I'll do it." Ling Han stood out. Without the boost from the power of the nation, how could the 7 kings possibly be a match for Ao Jian? Since he had taken over the mountain and river axe, he had also taken over the great banner of opposing the 5 sects of the immortal realm. Chapter 867. Junior Brother Han, do you dare fight me? Zhang Long asked calmly. He had indeed accepted a piece of high-grade godly metal from Gan Shiyun, but this was not the reason why he was willing to fight. He was willing to fight because he liked to trample on geniuses. The more talented a genius was, the more excited he would be. Ling Han stood up and said, "Since you want to be defeated, I will naturally grant your wish." This guy was very boastful. They had not even fought, and he already thought that he had won. Was he not afraid that he would speak too confidently and be slapped in the face later? Zhang Long's expression darkened, and he said, "I entered the sect 900 years earlier than you, so you should address me respectfully as senior brother." Who is senior brother, and who is junior brother? Shouldn't it be decided by strength? Ling Han asked calmly. If I advance into the Sun Moon tier one day, junior brother Zhang would still have to address me as Lord. Fuck, his ego was really exploding. Everyone shook their heads. Though Ling Han was very strong, having defeated Gan Shiyun before he had even entered the sect, Gan Shiyun had only entered the sect for a year or so, after all, so there was a limit to how strong she was. Zhang Long, however, was completely different. He had already entered the sect for 900 years, and had received a great many secret techniques of the sect. Though he had not formed the 5th mountain river, he had definitely cultivated the mountain river tier to a perfect level. Beneath the 5th mountain river, he should be invincible. Ha! Zhang Long laughed coldly. You are very arrogant, but I like opponents like you. I'll trample you until there's not a patch of skin left on you, and you'll be completely disgraced. Could it be that you are not worried that you will be the one being trampled to the ground, and be too ashamed to show your face? Ling Han shook his head. This joke is not funny in the slightest. Zhang Long humphed. I am not joking, Ling Han retorted. Zhang Long's expression became colder and colder. With a wave of his hand, he said, then let's battle. On the basis that you entered the sect first, I'll give you a handicap of 3 moves. Ling Han placed his hands behind his back. Arrogant Zhang Long was enraged, and suddenly attacked Ling Han. Hong! Though he had not formed the 5th mountain river, he had polished his mountain river tier to the pinnacle. His origin power was incredibly thick, and with a single strike, it was as if the heavens were pressing down, possessing the domineering aura of invincibility in the mountain river tier. Ling Han's feet moved, and he calmly retreated, dodging his opponent's attack by a hair's breadth. Hung, hung, hung. After 3 moves, Ling Han indeed did not even have to retaliate, and had already completely dispersed his opponent's attack. Gasp! Everyone was stunned. This was a little strong. They had already analyzed Zhang Long's strength before. Aside from the 6 king tiers, who else here would have the confidence to say that they could give Zhang Long a handicap of 3 moves? But Ling Han had not only said it, he had also done it. This person's strength was unfathomable. Even Wu Zhe and He Tao looked slightly surprised. They had not imagined that Ling Han's strength would be so strong. I've already given you a handicap of 3 moves, so I might as well give you a handicap of 1 hand. Ling Han continued to place his right hand behind his back, and merely raised his left hand. You're really too much, aren't you? That's Zhang Long we're talking about. Gan Shiyun was both shocked and elated. This time, Ling Han had completely offended Zhang Long. Now, there was no need for her to say anything. Zhang Long would definitely want to get rid of Ling Han as soon as possible. Very good, very good. She did not believe that with Zhang Long's strength, he would still not be able to defeat Ling Han. Then, this so-called seed-level genius of his, and the fact that he had entered the sect 900 years earlier, would all have been a waste of his cultivation. Zhang Long's hair stood on end in anger. He was truly enraged. A handicap of 3 moves and a handicap of 1 hand, this should have been his line, but now he was actually treated like this by a junior. He felt extremely humiliated. Junior brother, you asked for this. His eyes were cold and sinister. Suddenly, a blood-red color appeared, and his skin instantly turned blood-red. Then, his body suddenly swelled up. Pa, the cloth on his hands immediately burst apart, revealing 2 furry claws. That's right, they were not arms, but claws. Now, his 2 arms had transformed into tiger claws, and there were close to 70 divine patterns flickering on them, exuding a blood-red glow. Hiss, what kind of secret technique is this? Why do I feel that senior brother Zhang's strength has surpassed the level of the mountain river tier? Someone exclaimed in shock. He was obviously also a seed-level genius, but now, he was so overwhelmed by Zhang Long's aura that even his face had turned pale. No, you haven't surpassed the mountain river tier. The reason you have such a feeling is because your cultivation level is still a bit low. This is a mystical technique that senior brother Zhang has cultivated, and it is called the Great Ultimate Blood Tiger Technique. Once it is used, both his strength and speed will increase greatly. Senior brother Zhang has already cultivated to the peak stage of the mountain river tier in the first place, and his strength can surpass 6 stars. Now, with the addition of the Great Ultimate Blood Tiger Technique, it is very possible that his strength will leap to the level of 7 stars. This is the power of the pinnacle level. A senior brother who had entered the sect long ago spoke of Zhang Long's current state. He had not formed 5 mountains and rivers, but had broken through the limit of the 4 minor levels of the mountain river tier in a different way. However, secret techniques still had a time limit, after all, and were not like those that had truly formed 5 mountains and rivers, where that power was permanent. Moreover, could he not cultivate secret techniques just because he had formed 5 mountains and rivers? Zhang Long roared fiercely, and waved his claws to attack Ling Han. Xiao. He was too fast. His whole person seemed to have turned into a flash of bloody light, so fast that most of the cultivators in the consummate level of the mountain river tier could not even catch a glimpse of him. Pang! They saw Ling Han make his move. With a flick of his left hand, he shot out a flash of sword chi. This strike was fast to the pinnacle. Hong! The attacks collided, forming a brilliant light that blinded the majority of the people. They could not see the battle clearly at all. However, the light soon dimmed. Ling Han stood proudly in the arena, his left arm flat, his index and middle fingers forming a sword. There was a weak sword light flickering, and Zhang Long had fallen at Ling Han's feet. His face was facing the sky, and blood was gushing out of his chest. What? As strong as Zhang Long was, he had actually been defeated with a single strike. Everyone's eyes widened, and even their breathing had stopped. How was this possible? This was completely impossible. Some people were about to clutch their heads and exclaim in shock, thinking that their eyes must have been playing tricks on them, and that they had mistaken the identities of the two sides. It must have been Zhang Long who had defeated Ling Han with a single strike. But when they opened their eyes again, there was not the slightest change in the scene. Zhang Long laid on the ground, already fainted. Defeated, completely defeated. Ling Han kicked out, and sent Zhang Long back to the rock he had been on. The strength of this kick was extremely ingenious, and it just happened to make Zhang Long lie flat on the rock, with his buttocks facing the sky and his arms dangling. That appearance would definitely be engraved in everyone's hearts forever. Gan Shiyun felt a chill rise from the bottom of her heart. Ling Han's strength had completely surpassed her imagination. Even Zhang Long had been easily defeated. Could it be that he had formed the fifth mountain river? That was really a natural chasm. Even a super sect like the Majestic Heaven sect, which had gathered the best prodigies from over 100 planets, now only had 6 king tiers. This kind of prodigy would definitely be viewed as a treasure by the sect, so how could she possibly have any hope of revenge? Ling Han cast a cold glance at her. Zhang Long had deliberately challenged him, and it was obvious that this had something to do with Gan Shiyun. Gan Shiyun felt as if even her soul had trembled, and she hurriedly lowered her gaze, not daring to meet Ling Han's eyes. Hee, I really did not think that junior brother Han would actually be so strong, Wu Zhi said with a smile as he clapped his hands. There was a strong hint of wariness in his eyes. He did not dare to underestimate even Zhang Long, because it was very possible that the latter had formed the fifth mountain river, and once again caught up to him. Then, wasn't this man who had defeated Zhang Long even more frightening? Ling Han broke into a smile, and asked, Brother Wu, can you teach me a move or two? Chapter 868. To be honest, even if Ling Han did not parry this spear attack, he would be fine even if he took it head-on. But before he had the confidence to kill Ao Jian, he did not want to expose the secret that his physique was as tough as godly metal. If the other party knew, would Ao Jian still fight him? What a joke. Facing an opponent that could never be killed or even injured, who would have the thought of continuing to fight? Ling Han was waiting for an opportunity, or rather, creating an opportunity to let Ao Jian think that he had grasped a flaw and deliver a fatal blow. Thus, his own weakness would also be exposed, allowing him to counterattack. The two of them were evenly matched in strength, so if you don't give me a chance to hit, why would I give it to you? For elites of their level, it was impossible for every attack to be executed without holding back, and they had to leave a way out for themselves. Thus, even if the attack missed, they would still have strength left over to parry and dodge. Ling Han wanted to let Ao Jian think that the other party's attack could severely injure him, or even kill him. Only then would the other party not hold back and unleash his full strength. Once that was the case, then after the strongest attack, his own defense would also fall to the bottom, and that would be the time for Ling Han to counterattack. Now, Ao Jian thought that he had grasped such an opportunity. Ling Han did not reveal any obvious flaws. This could not be hidden from a genius like Ao Jian at all, allowing the other party to easily see through this trap. Thus, he had painstakingly planned and revealed an inadvertent flaw, and after a few consecutive attacks, he continuously enlarged this flaw, giving Aojian a reason to deliver a full-strength attack. The silver spear pierced through the air, and the true dragon roared. This was an absolutely powerful attack. Even if it was Ma Duo Bao who took this attack head-on, he could only die with a grievance. It hit. Aojian immediately revealed a joyful expression. So what if you were a monster? Being hit by this attack of his, there was only death awaiting you. Peng, the tip of the spear pierced into Ling Han's chest. The true dragon wreaked havoc, wanting to pierce through Ling Han's chest and shatter his heart. However, the material of Ling Han's chest was torn, but his skin exuded a jade-like luster, undamaged and unbroken. Fuck, what kind of physique was this? Roving Sword was instantly stunned. Was this guy really a human? Were you sure you weren't a monster from the immortal realm? Eat my sword as well. Ling Han took the opportunity to counterattack. His opponent had just unleashed his strongest attack, and right now, his strength and defense were in a vacuum. Although it was only for a short moment, for Ling Han, that moment was enough. The Revere Life Sword radiated with boundless light as it slashed towards Roving Sword's neck. All methods returned to one pu, the sword light streaked past, and a head flew into the sky. Fresh blood gushed out from the severed neck like a heavenly waterfall, shaking the space as if it was about to cause the heaven and earth to collapse. He's dead. When the seven kings saw this, they all felt that their hatred had been vented. This person actually wanted to whip the corpse of their king, which made them go crazy with anger. Now that Aojian was beheaded by Ling Han, it naturally made them excited and slightly relieved the depression in their hearts. He's not dead. Ling Han shook his head and stared off into the distance. How could this be? Isn't this his corpse? The seven kings didn't understand. This is only his body, but his spirit has left his body. Ling Han frowned. Logically speaking, though one's spirit could leave one's body, that was something that only immortals could do. Moreover, it had to be a very powerful immortal. Cultivating one's spirit to an incredibly stable degree was definitely not something that immortals could do. However, Aojian was clearly only in the shattering void tier. Come, this person should have obtained some secret treasure, or perhaps some kind of godly medicine that could allow his spirit to leave his body, Ling Han said inwardly as he put away the Revere Life Sword. Although Aojian's spirit had escaped, his physical body was slashed here, so it wasn't without merit. Your Majesty! The seven kings cried out sorrowfully again. Today was a day of great sorrow for the Purple Gold Empire. The monarch had fallen, and the name of the empire had faded away, no longer existing from now on. Ling Han sighed, and said, "Don't worry about that for now. Let's make arrangements for Brother Ma's funeral." This obtained the seven kings' approval. When a person died, he would naturally be buried in peace. Those who came to attend the ceremony became the people who sent Ma Duo Bao on his last journey. Everyone held great respect for this elite. He fell at the last step of splitting open the skies, dying for the entire continent. Otherwise, with Ma Duo Bao's ability, wouldn't it be easy for him to protect himself? There would always be some people who would fight with their lives for their ideals. The former monarch had passed away, and this was obviously a state funeral. Moreover, he had died for the entire continent. The funeral was held for a whole month, and Ma Duo Bao's body was personally sent to the core of the earth by Ling Han to accompany the vast lands forever. There were still many things to do next. The handover of a country was obviously not a matter of a word. There were many details and trifles to be taken care of. Fortunately, although Hellion Sun Shui was gone, there was still the Rain Emperor, the veteran, to share a lot of the pressure for Ling Han. Hellion Tianyun also re-entered the sea region and began to recover the four seas. Now, although Aojian didn't die, he only had a spirit left. Even if he reappeared, so what? Could he be Helian Tianyun's match? One had to know that Helian Tianyun had 20 stars of shattering void tier battle prowess back then, not losing to Ma Duo Bao in freakishness. Now that he returned to the shattering void tier, his strength advanced by leaps and bounds, and it wouldn't be long before he could return to the peak. Meanwhile, Ling Han cultivated diligently. The present him still didn't have the qualifications to split open the skies, and to be on the safe side, he definitely had to reach the 9th layer of the shattering void tier. People were easily forgetful. Although Ma Duo Bao had fought with great vigor at that time, after half a year had passed, everyone had gone on to live their own lives. Very few people would mention this tragic figure again. However, Ling Han, the 7 kings, and the others obviously wouldn't forget. They all held back a burst of energy to split open the skies, to become immortals, and to sweep through the 5 sects and the AO family. This definitely wasn't something that could be done overnight, but they didn't lack patience and perseverance. Helian Tianyun swept through the sea region again, and the 4 seas became one, which also became the territory of the Great Ling Empire. This time, all lands under the heavens belonged to the emperor. Ling Han could grasp the movements of every place in the world, as long as he wanted to. He now controlled all the resources of the entire lower realm, and added with the Black Tower, his cultivation speed was obviously astonishingly fast. Of course, the most important thing was that he experienced the Shattering Void Tier once in reincarnation, allowing him to obtain the comprehension of the Shattering Void Tier in advance, and there was no longer any bottleneck. After another half a year, Ling Han finally advanced into the 9th layer of the Shattering Void Tier, and at this time, he was only 22 years old. All along the way, I've reached perfection, and even surpassed the limit, so my current strength has reached 10 stars. Ling Han estimated his own battle prowess. Don't say that he achieved extreme perfection in the previous 9 tiers, but now he could only increase his strength by 1 star. One had to know that a single star in the Shattering Void Tier was a world of difference, and such an increase was extremely shocking. If I use my full strength, my regular battle prowess can reach 20 stars. This wasn't Ling Han's limit, because he had just advanced into the 9th layer of the Shattering Void Tier, and could still polish his cultivation level, purify his origin power, and increase his strength by another level. Perhaps he could reach 11 stars of Shattering Void Tier, and then his regular battle prowess would break through the limit of 20 stars. Chapter 869. It was astonishing. Ma Duo Bao was so powerful, but his normal battle prowess was only 20 stars. This battle prowess that broke through the limit was naturally incomparably terrifying. Helian Tianyun also had a chance to reach 21 stars of battle prowess because he had nurtured a second life from the true dragon's tooth, so he should be even stronger. Then, what about the power of the nation? Ling Han condensed the power of the nation, and a terrifying power condensed, pushing his power up to 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier. This was the limit allowed by the vast lands, and it could not be increased any further. But gathering all the power of the nation of the 4 seas and the whole continent, this limit was not just 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier. Other people would not encounter this problem at all, because their physiques would not be able to withstand it at all. Before they reached the ultimate strength of 20 stars of Shattering Void Tier, their physical bodies would have already collapsed. However, Ling Han's physique had reached the level of godly metal, and this was still not enough to support him. However, the power could not be used directly in his body. Instead, it could be used to condense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in a single strike, increasing the might of the attack and indirectly increasing his strength. 25 stars of Shattering Void Tier. Ling Han could not be sure. This kind of battle prowess was unprecedented, and there was no way to compare it at all. In short, he was stronger than Ma Duo Bao when he split open the sky, and definitely not by just a little bit. But my true trump card is my physique, Ling Han said in his heart. When he split open the sky, the ultimate elites of the immortal realm's 5 sects would definitely make a move again, but the attack would be weakened by the realm power, so what if it reached 25 stars of Shattering Void Tier? Can't hurt him. I've also made some progress in cultivating the second layer of the indestructible heaven scroll. My spirit did not strengthen, but rather became more stable. It's impossible to use the heart of martial art to kill me. The indestructible heaven scroll was very strange, and the main point was indestructible. Other people's techniques either increased their elemental energy or increased their brute force, but the first stage of the technique was to increase the strength of their physique. It was the same for the second level of the cultivation method. It improved the stability of the soul, not the strengthening of the soul. I heard that deities cultivate their divine souls. If they release their divine souls, it would be equivalent to having another self. However, they would be able to form a 10,000 zhang golden body and travel millions and millions of li in an instant. It's incomparably miraculous. Although the indestructible heaven scroll cannot strengthen the spirit, it can stabilize it and increase its safety, just like the physique. The current me is strong enough to split open the sky. But first, I have to solve some historical problems. Ling Han said inwardly. Once he successfully split open the skies and entered the realm of immortals, then countless great forces would come to fight for the control of the vast lands. This was something that Ling Han could not resist. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't be able to resist and could only choose to retreat. According to Yi Shuang's words, the God Realm's great forces wouldn't directly annex the small worlds that came from opening up the sky, but would absorb them as vassal states. The monarch couldn't sit in the state and needed to be a hostage. If you don't like it, I'll immediately send you to the realm wall to participate in the battle. You'll lose your life in minutes. In other words, after splitting open the sky, the living beings of the lower realm could escape the fate of being refined into a realm pill, and could even obtain a better cultivation environment. However, the one who split open the sky would lose his freedom, and perhaps he could only be a nominal ruler for the rest of his life. However, Ling Han believed in himself. The shallow waters could trap the true dragon for a while, but definitely not forever. Let's go to Wind Moon sect first. Ling Han didn't take anyone with him, and his figure spread out as he rushed towards Wind Moon sect. Years ago, he killed Wind Moon sect's sect master Hu Jianyi's only son, Hu Qingfang, and ended up being chased by Hu Jianyi. Later, with Feng Peyun's help, Hu Jianyi retreated. However, Ling Han said at the time that when his cultivation reached heaven tier, he would personally come to Wind Moon sect and uproot this evil sect. However, he had been busy cultivating before, and only now did he finally have the time. How fast was his current speed? After only one day, he arrived at Wind Moon sect's mountain gate. From the outside, this sect had the style of a great sect. There were white clouds lingering around the mountain peak, filled with an ethereal presence. However, it was precisely this place that was filled with filth and was filled with incomparable darkness. Ling Han raised his right hand, and the rock spirit leaped out of the black tower. He said indifferently, "Dismantle it." The rock spirit immediately cracked a smile. Old Stone didn't know how many times he'd done violent relocation. It rushed out familiarly, and pang, a fist smashed onto the mountain gate, directly blowing it up. Instantly, gravel flew, making the Wind Moon sect disciples guarding the mountain gate complain incessantly. The pain from being flicked was bone deep, extremely uncomfortable. Who dares to break into Wind Moon sect? They yelled as they cried out in pain. Otherwise, without even figuring out the intruder's identity, they'd be killed by the sect's bosses. The rock spirit obviously didn't care. With a swish, it waved its thick and long arm, and didn't even need to hit its target. The strong wind it raised shook those Wind Moon sect disciples into bloody foam. It was in the Shattering Void tier, and reached the third layer of the Shattering Void tier. This was an absolute suppression. Ling Han walked towards the mountain with his hands clasped behind his back. Who is it? Stop. Hurry up and inform the sect's bosses. On the way, many Wind Moon sect disciples jumped out, but they were all immediately smacked to death by the rock spirit, no matter how strong they were. When a deity transformation tier elite was also smacked to death, no one dared to jump out again, and only looked at the rock spirit with fearful eyes. What kind of existence was this, inconceivably strong? Kill them all. Ling Han said coldly. He could show mercy to any faction and give them a way out. At the very least, he wouldn't kill everyone from top to bottom. However, the Wind Moon sect was an exception. These disciples all practiced the plucking technique, and their cultivation was paid for by countless lives. Everyone had their own path to death. The rock spirit faithfully executed the order, and its divine sense enveloped the entire Wind Moon sect. No one could escape. For shattering void tier elites, it was too easy to do this. Stop! Hu Jianyi finally appeared. He gritted his teeth, and his gaze towards Ling Han was full of resentment, but more than that, fear. Only a few years had passed, and this young man grew to a height that he could only look up to. He certainly knew that Ling Han would surpass him one day, but he didn't think that this day would come so soon. Stop! Who are you giving orders to? Ling Han said indifferently. The rock spirit only listened to Ling Han's orders, and obviously wouldn't pay attention to Hu Jianyi, still attacking without stopping. No matter how far the Wind Moon sect's disciples hid, it could annihilate them with a punch from a distance. The difference in strength was too great. If you don't stop, these women will die. Hu Jianyi said coldly as he pointed at a platform halfway up the mountain. Ling Han focused his gaze, and saw that there were hundreds of women sitting on the platform. They were all very young, but now each had a sharp blade on their necks, and behind them stood a Wind Moon sect disciple brimming with murderous intent. As long as you vow not to make things difficult for Wind Moon sect, I can also vow that from today onwards, our sect will cultivate properly. Hu Jianyi said. Chapter 870. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh, and said, "Why do you make me believe that a dog will change? I cast a secret technique on these women. As long as I think about it, their hearts will burst and they will die. Moreover, as long as my heart stops beating, they will suffer the same fate." Hu Jianyi sneered. "As the king of Great Ling Dynasty, do you have the heart to let these innocent people die because of you?" "I can't." Ling Han shook his head. Hu Jianyi was immediately overjoyed, and said, "Then hurry up and swear." "Who said I'm going to let you go?" Ling Han laughed. "You're really shameless, don't be too self-righteous." "Damn it." Hu Jianyi's eyes were spitting fire. "Are you teasing me? I'm the master of a sect, at worst I'll fight to the death. Anyway, with so many beauties accompanying me, I won't be lonely on the road to hell." "I already said you're dreaming, why are you still so narcissistic?" Ling Han laughed. Then I'll kill a few first to give you a reminder." Hu Jianyi said. Ever since Ling Han became the master of the middle state, he had expected this day to happen. He certainly wasn't willing to wait for his neck to be cut, so there was the current scene. So what if he was despicable? As long as he could live, he could do things 10 times more despicable. Pooh! He only felt his vision blur, and then heard 2 heartbeats in front of him. He was stunned at first. He didn't expect Ling Han to really dare to attack him. Did he really not care about the lives of those women? But then he had another thought. Why were there 2 heartbeats? Wasn't there only one person? He looked at Ling Han and saw that the other's hand was clutching a red heartbeat. Strangely, that heart was still beating. So painful in the chest. Hu Jianyi looked down, but was shocked to find that there was a bloody hole in his chest, and blood was gushing out. Only then did he realize that the heart in Ling Han's hand was his. When did the other party grab out his heart? Hu Jianyi's mind flashed with inexplicable thoughts, but his consciousness suddenly blurred. He really wanted to send out the thought of exterminating and letting everyone be buried with him, but this thought simply couldn't be sent out. There was only Ling Han's cold gaze in front of his eyes. Then, his consciousness became more and more blurry. His consciousness left his body, and he became a corpse. Ling Han took a step forward and arrived on the platform. He released his aura. Peng, peng, peng. Everyone trembled. They didn't even have the ability to move a finger. Ling Han scanned with his divine sense. Pa, pa, pa. The hearts of the Wind Moon sect's disciples were all shattered, and he released the restrictions on the captured women. Even a heaven tears technique could stump him. Ling Han summoned the guards in the nearby cities and ordered them to escort the women back. Of course, such a trivial matter did not require a dignified ruler to personally deal with. He connected with the totem and placed the entire continent under his perception. He remained motionless for a day before suddenly opening his eyes. Found it. He immediately flew towards a place in the middle state. A day later, Ling Han arrived at a small town. Just a day ago, he discovered through the totem that the Thousand Corpse sect appeared here, and it was one of their generals, Corpse Boss. Before entering the divine realm, he had to completely annihilate the Thousand Corpse sect. However, there was no news of the remaining members of the 5 sects such as the Sword King and the others. He didn't know which deep mountain or ancient forest they were hiding in, and they would probably only appear when the gods descended. He walked slowly, looking for the traces left by Corpse Boss. Unknowingly, he arrived at a river. In front, a youngster was standing on a large rock, staring at the river. The expression on his face was very rich, one moment angry, the next disappointed. He looked no more than 15 or 16 years old, but seemed to have encountered a huge setback in his life. Want to jump? Ling Han asked casually as he walked over. The youngster's clothes were very high-end, but the fabric was very old, washed spotless, and somewhat faded as if he had been wearing the same clothes without changing them. He turned around and glanced at Ling Han, then immediately withdrew his gaze, and said, "Don't worry, I won't jump." "You look like you might jump at any time," Ling Han said with a smile. "This has nothing to do with you, right?" the youngster said coldly. Ling Han was idle, so he said, "Tell me, what grievances have you encountered?" The youngster glanced at him again. He obviously didn't plan to talk about the knot in his heart with a complete stranger, but Ling Han's life experience was too rich. A few words hit the nail on the head, causing him to unknowingly open his mouth and speak. "My name is Ding Ping, the first successor of the Ding family. I've had extraordinary strength since I was young, and was praised as a genius. I was sought after by all the clansmen, and I also had a very beautiful fiancée. However, my spirit base didn't awaken until half a year ago. When my spirit base finally awakened, it was a withered spirit base, unable to cultivate. Now, the people in my family view me as trash, and my fiancé also broke off the engagement with me. I hate it. Why must the heavens do this to me? I refuse to accept it even more. These few years, I've worked hard, I've worked harder than anyone else. Why am I inferior to others?" The youngster was indignant. Ling Han smiled, and said, "In this world, you can't achieve success just by working hard." Clang, this was a blow to the head. The youngster was already agitated, and when he heard this, he couldn't help but want to bite someone in anger. "However, if you don't work hard, then you definitely won't succeed." Ling Han circled back to the topic. He looked at Ding Ping, and said, "You're very strong." Ding Ping couldn't help but reveal a hint of pride, and said, "Even those who have cultivated for 4 or 5 years don't dare to compete with me in strength." This was a little shocking. After cultivating for 4 or 5 years, he should be able to reach the 5th layer of body refinement tier, right? Ling Han couldn't help but be interested. He clearly didn't sense any strong qi and blood from Ding Ping's body. He said, "Show it to me." Ding Ping originally didn't want to pay attention to him. He was feeling depressed without him, but Ling Han's words seemed to have an unparalleled authority, and he couldn't help but do as he was told. He jumped down from the rock, and with a push of his hands, he lifted up this rock that was as big as a crouching bull. This rock weighed at least several tens of thousands of kilograms. Ling Han was shocked. If this youngster was a body cultivator, then it wouldn't be strange for him to lift such a big rock, but he really couldn't see it at all. He activated the Eye of Truth and scanned the youngster's body, and immediately discovered something strange. This youngster's bone structure was completely different from that of ordinary people. Through a miraculous way of borrowing strength, he was like a scale. He clearly only had 4 taels of strength, but he could lift something that weighed 500 kilograms. Of course, this required the youngster's bones to be incomparably sturdy. Otherwise, he would definitely be crushed by such heavy rebirth. This could be seen from the patterns carved on his bones. How many people were born with bone patterns? Ling Han couldn't help but laugh and said, "Youngster, take me as your master." Chapter 871. From a certain perspective, He Tao and Wu Zhou were still quite good. At the very least, they had taken out truly good things to give to their junior brothers and sisters. If it weren't for the fact that Wu Zhou was too competitive and defeated the Rain Emperor with a dirty trick, Ling Han wouldn't have challenged him and made him leave resentfully. After asking around, Ling Han found out that the other 4 king tiers had all gone to explore various places. In the Majestic Heaven sect, the relationship between the disciples was still quite good. When the senior brothers and sisters went out adventuring and obtained some good things, they would take them out and share them with the junior brothers and sisters who had just entered the sect. This was a tradition. For example, when the other 4 king tiers returned, they would also take out some greeting gifts for Ling Han and the others. Generation after generation, this became a very good tradition. Everyone decided on the 10 most outstanding individuals of the Tao discussion, and they would receive an additional serene pooling tea leaf in their tea. Ling Han was naturally one of them. If he wasn't qualified, who was? The Rain Emperor also received this special honor. However, Ding Ping didn't. He had lost to Lan Wan, and no matter what the reason was a loss. This showed that his mental state hadn't reached a certain level yet. "Brother Han, are you interested in exploring an ancient land?" He Tao walked over and invited Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but smile, and said, "I wonder what kind of ancient land it is. It's probably a great sect from the ancient times. It seems like their sect has been destroyed, but there are still many valuable things left behind," He Tao said with a serious expression. He knew that he wouldn't be able to move Ling Han if he didn't offer some substantial information. Ling Han said, "With Brother He's ability, there doesn't seem to be a need to drag me along, right?" He Tao chuckled, and said, "There's a treasure trove that can only be opened by combining the power of 7 people. Moreover, they have to be at the pinnacle level of the mountain river tier." Ling Han was astonished. Opening a treasure trove required such a high requirement. This ancient sect was so awesome. One had to realize that even though the Majestic Heaven sect had gathered the most prodigies of over 100 galaxies, only 7 of them had formed 5 mountains and rivers in this generation. Ling Han's interest was piqued, and he asked, "When do we set off?" He didn't ask where this ancient land was. Otherwise, it would be far too indiscreet. He Tao laughed loudly, and said, "There's no rush, there's no rush. This ancient land is actually controlled by the sect, and it's a mystery realm that only opens once every 100 years. However, it'll open soon. It'll be within half a year." To immortals, half a year was indeed a very short period of time. "The sect has wanted to open that treasure trove for a very long time," He Tao said. "However, the cultivation level of those who enter is limited to the mountain river tier. Before this, however, only 6 people had formed 5 mountains and rivers. Thus, they could only sigh when they passed by the treasure trove every time. If it weren't for this, Shenzhu, Shirangua, and Wu Wentong would have broken through to the Sun-Moon tier decades ago. However, they still had a sliver of hope, and thus suppressed their cultivation levels. They planned to wait until the ancient land opened before breaking through. Hee, the heavens are truly fulfilling their wishes. Now that Brother Han has appeared, there's hope for the ancient land to open." Ling Han was astonished, and he said, in other words, Shenju, Shirangua, and Wu Wentong have all cultivated their 5th mountains and rivers to perfection. Gasp! This was a power of 10 stars. This was comparable to the early stage of the low extreme of the Sun-Moon tier. He Tao smiled faintly, and said, at the very least, these 3 have already reached this level. Kuang Peishan formed his 5th great river a dozen or so years ago. I wonder how he's doing now. Forming the 5th great river would mean that one's power would advance to 7 stars. Cultivating it to perfection would mean that one's power would advance to 8 stars. Meanwhile, forming the 5th great river would mean that one's power would advance to 9 stars. Ling Han was curious, and he asked, what about brother He? He Tao smiled. After a while, he said, he's slightly weaker than the 4 of them. He only formed his 5th great river a few days ago. Gasp! Power of 9 stars. In comparison, Wu Zhe was the weakest. His 5th great river definitely hadn't been cultivated to perfection. Otherwise, he would most likely be able to suppress Ling Han in terms of power, and he wouldn't just be at a slight advantage. As expected of king tiers. They were so powerful. Ling Han didn't dare to underestimate the 6 kings in the first place. Now that he heard He Tao's words, he naturally took them even more seriously. However, he wouldn't be fearful because of this. After all, he also had powerful trump cards, so there was no need for him to be afraid. Everyone sipped their tea and continued to discuss Tao. Good tea paired with good water allowed everyone to immerse themselves in the great Tao. At this moment, everyone's prodigious side was on full display. Divine light rose from almost everyone's body, and they could feel the regulations of the great Tao. This was naturally the effect of the serene poplar tea. However, there were some exceptions. For example, Ling Han didn't have anything on him. This couldn't be helped. They were all people who had drunk the reincarnation tea before, so what effect could a mere serene poplar tea have? Ling Han didn't have any, and neither did He Tao. It was clear that he had either drunk this tea before, or he had drunk divine tea that was even more effective. For example, this kind of tea would be most effective the first time it was drunk. After that, it would become worse and worse. The 2 of them exchanged a glance, and a faint smile appeared on their faces. In their minds, they had become even more superior to each other. Wang! All of a sudden, a terrifying aura swept over. It was as if a demon god had descended, causing a chill to run down everyone's spine. Who was it? Everyone was stunned. This was an important place of the majestic heaven sect, so who would dare to come here and strut around? Before they knew it, a white-robed man walked over. His hands were clasped behind his back, and the strong winds at the summit of the mountain rustled his long robes and hair. There was an indescribable elegance to him. This was a supremely handsome man. His face was as smooth as jade, and his figure was tall and slender. He was the type of man who could cause resentful women to scream with a single glance. Lord Yang, many people exclaimed in surprise. Even though they were all seeds, they still wore expressions of awe and veneration when they saw this young man. Yang Hao was a prodigy among prodigies, and he had used a mere 600 years to cultivate to the Sun-Moon tier. Moreover, he was able to defeat all of his peers. All prodigies were nothing more than stepping stones in front of him, and he was merely using them to show off his greatness. No one knew what cultivation level he was at now. They only knew that he had definitely improved tremendously. The Sun-Moon tier and Mountain River tier were 2 completely different cultivation levels. Even if one cultivated to the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier, they would only be able to rival the weakest Sun-Moon tier. Many people stood up and bowed respectfully to Yang Hao. Greetings, milord. In the majestic heaven sect, if a disciple's cultivation level was higher than his, they would address him as milord, and they wouldn't address him as senior uncle or something like that. He Tao's expression didn't change. He was about to cultivate to the pinnacle level of the Mountain River tier. With a prodigy like him, he could even advance to the pinnacle level, so breaking through to the sun-moon tier was naturally a piece of cake. Thus, he didn't fear Yang Hao that much. However, strength was the most important thing in the cultivation world. As long as he didn't advance to the sun-moon tier, he would be inferior to Yang Hao. Thus, he wouldn't provoke Yang Hao. Yang Hao exuded a domineering aura, and he was like a demon lord. Anyone could only kowtow before him. His eyes swept over the crowd, and he calmly asked, "Who's Han Lin?" Chapter 872. It was normal that he was hungry. The source of energy for body cultivators was the food they ate. Ding Ping hadn't eaten for a day and night, and now that he started body cultivation, he was obviously hungry immediately. Ling Han laughed, and said, "Let's eat first." He took out the ingredients from the Black Tower and cooked them. Very soon, a fragrant aroma filled the air, causing Ding Ping to salivate uncontrollably. After he took a bite, he couldn't stop. Seeing him eat piece after piece of meat with relish, Ling Han couldn't help but think of Hunyo. He wondered if this little girl was doing well in the realm of immortals. She probably ate a lot of meat, right? When he saw Hunyo again, she probably wouldn't be a little girl anymore, but a slender and elegant young lady. A girl changes 18 times between womanhood and womanhood. Would the little girl not like him, this uncle? Ling Han was lost in thought. After a while, he started eating. He was about to split open the sky, and as long as he entered the realm of immortals, he would be with his family under the same starry sky, and there would be a day when they would reunite. Ding Ping was a bit surprised that Master would be distracted when eating such delicious food. As expected of Master, he probably ate too much and got tired of it. After eating, Ding Ping only felt that his whole body was full of strength. He then started to practice the 9 Dragons Tyrant Body Art. After a simple round of practice, he went to lift the stone again, and shockingly discovered that his strength had actually increased by more than 10 times. It was only for a day. Moreover, many of the improvements weren't as simple as strength. For example, the toughness of the skin and bones couldn't be seen from the outside. Ling Han nodded, and said, "You now have about the strength of the 3rd layer of body refining tier, but the structure of your bones is very strange, allowing your strength to explode 100-fold. Thus, your explosive strength is comparable to the 1st layer of poly. Go home and rest well. In the future, come back every afternoon. When it's time to leave, Master will naturally take you away." Ding Ping's expression was respectful, and he bowed, saying, "Yes, Master." He was full of joy. He had thought that he had become a cripple, but he never thought that he would now open another door. 9 Dragons Tyrant Body Art, after mastering it, one would possess the power of 9 dragons. What kind of mighty power was that? He couldn't wait to return to his family and see those people's faces. As for Ling Han, he was naturally filled with reverence. After just a day of interaction, he realized that his master's strength was beyond his imagination. Ling Han stayed by the river, waiting for Corpse Boss to appear again. A wisp of his divine sense, through the totem, had a panoramic view of every corner of the small town. He wanted to test Ding Ping's temperament. Talent and perseverance only meant that Ding Ping had the potential to become a powerhouse. However, this powerhouse could be a good person or a bad person. Ling Han did not want to personally nurture a great devil. Hence, asking Ding Ping to return this time was a test of his temperament. Would he be able to protect his heart if his strength suddenly increased and he became a genius again? Ding Ping returned to the town, went to the Ding clan, and walked in openly. Eldest young master. The 2 guards at the door greeted him, but they were all laughing and joking without any respect. Everyone knew that Ding Ping had finally awakened his spirit base half a year ago, but it was a trash spirit base, and he could not cultivate at all. In this day and age, what was the use of just having great strength? The elders of the family had already discussed this for a long time. The result would be out in a few days, and Ding Ping's status as the #1 successor would be abolished. There were so many members of the younger generation of the Ding clan, and a phoenix without feathers was no better than a chicken. Was there still a need for reverence? Ding Ping swept his gaze over, snorted, and said, "What kind of attitude is this?" "What kind of attitude?" one of the guards said in a strange voice. "Eldest young Master Ding, what kind of attitude do you want us to use? In a few days, your status will be lower than even that of a servant. So, take advantage of these few days and enjoy your last glory, eldest young Master Ding." "How dare you!" Ding Ping raised his hand, and slapped him across the face. That guard was only in the refinement tier, so how could he block or dodge? He was instantly slapped solidly. He covered his face with one hand, pointed at Ding Ping, and said, "You dare to hit me? Can't I? As long as I, Ding Ping, am the young master of the Ding clan, I can teach you how to be a servant." Ding Ping said coldly. "Hee, clan brother Ping is so impressive." Just at this moment, a youth walked out of the manor. Ding Feiwen. Ding Ping's gaze swept over him, and his eyes instantly spat fire. Half a year ago, this clan brother of his had still been calling him Brother Ping, walking around him to and fro, and flattering him. But once he discovered that Ding Ping had a crippled spirit base, his attitude immediately took a 180-degree turn. Not only did he completely lose respect for Ding Ping, he even slandered him in every possible way. He was a complete despicable person. Ha ha ha. Ding Feiwen laughed loudly. He was not alone, as there was a beauty beside him. She was only 14 or 15 years old, and her figure had already developed considerably well. She had very obvious curves, and was very alluring. Yuan. When Ding Ping saw her, he could not help but call out. That little beauty's expression was cold, and she said, "Eldest young Master Ding, our engagement has already been annulled. Please do not call me so intimately, it will cause misunderstandings." Her name was Yi Yuan, and she had once been Ding Ping's fiancée. However, when they found out that Ding Ping had a crippled spirit base half a year ago, the Yi clan had annulled the engagement immediately. What a joke. Though the Yi clan was not as powerful as the Ding clan, it was still impossible for them to betroth the pearl of their clan to a good-for-nothing. Furthermore, Yi Yuan's talent in martial art was rather astonishing, and she would have great achievements in the future. Ding Ping could not help but feel an extreme pain in his heart. He indeed truly liked Yi Yuan, and she had always been affectionate and extremely gentle towards him. However, ever since the engagement had been annulled half a year ago, he had not seen her again. Previously, he had only thought that Yi Yuan had been placed under house arrest by her clan, but only now did he realize that her previous gentleness towards him had all been an act. This made him feel as if a knife had pierced his heart. "That's right, clan brother Ping, don't call her that. Now, Yuan is my fiancé," Ding Feiwen continued. Ding Ping felt as if he had been heavily punched in the face, and his face turned pale. He could not help but feel extremely pleased with himself. In the past, he had always been suppressed by Ding Ping. No matter how outstanding his performance was, he seemed to pale in comparison to Ding Ping. However, he was very scheming. Even though he hated Ding Ping to the core, he still played the role of a lackey in front of the latter. This was because, compared to pride and self-respect, he valued power more. However, now that Ding Ping had lost power, and he had replaced his position, there was naturally no need for him to pretend anymore. He could fully display his arrogance and ruthlessly strike down this person who had once stepped on his head. Yuan. Ding Ping called out with a pale face. He really liked Yi Yuan, but now, the Yi Yuan in front of him was completely unable to overlap with the person in his mind. There was no longer any commonality between them. "How dare you? Is the name of Brother Feiwen's fiancé someone you can call out?" There were still two youngsters behind him, and they immediately jumped out and shouted at Ding Ping. Chapter 873. Ding Ping's eyes swept over them. One of them was called Ding Yuxuan, and the other was Ding Xingwei. They had once been his underlings, the type that dared not go west if he told them to, but now, they were all shameless and arrogant, completely disregarding him. In reality, Ding Ping also knew that he had a crippled spirit base, and could no longer sit in the position of young master of the Ding clan. It was not that he could not accept the clan's request to abdicate his position. However, the viciousness of these people's faces and how quickly they turned hostile made his heart turn cold. They were all of the same clan, so was there a need to be so cold and realistic? Oh, right, I forgot to tell you a piece of good news. Ding Feiwen laughed loudly. A few days ago, I went to the Crimson Sun sect to become an apprentice, and it was already approved. To be called a sect meant that it had at least spiritual infant tier elites to keep watch, and what kind of force was the Ding clan? They were only in the spiritual ocean tier, far too inferior. Thus, Ding Feiwen being able to enter the Crimson Sun sect could be said to be extremely good news for the Ding clan. It was no different from their daughter marrying into the imperial palace and becoming an imperial concubine. It was no wonder that the Yi clan would act so quickly and betroth Yi Yuan to Ding Feiwen. This was a true wealthy son-in-law. When Ding Feiwen came out of the Crimson Sun sect, his cultivation level should be at least in the spiritual ocean tier, and advancing into the spiritual pedestal tier was not impossible, or even the flower blossom tier. He would be invincible in Whitewater Town. Brother Feiwen, you're so awesome. Yi Yuan expressed her admiration in a timely manner, giving Ding Feiwen a great sense of satisfaction. Ding Ping saw all this, and his heart calmed down. At this moment, he suddenly let go, and thought things through. Yi Yuan had never truly loved him. She only fancied the position of young master of the Ding clan, and he had once been favored by the clan because of his potential. And what he liked was not the real Yi Yuan, but the gentleness that she pretended to be. Since that was so, why should he be sad? Was it worth it for a woman who did not like him? Why bother with these people? They only lived in a pond, and had no idea how wide the rivers and seas were. Although Ling Han did not clearly reveal his identity, Ding Ping could guess that this master's status was definitely extremely high. The domineering aura that flowed from his every movement was definitely not comparable to a second person. Just take Ling Han's previous means for example. In just a short day, he had been reborn. Now, his strength was comparable to the first level of Pali. This would scare all the people in the clan to death. Moreover, the 9 dragons tyrant body art could allow him to possess the strength of 9 true dragons after he cultivated it. This was even more astonishing. In comparison, what was the position of the young master of the Ding family? What was a disciple of the Crimson Sun sect? As he thought about this, Ding Ping's mentality immediately changed, and his temperament became much more mature. He was no longer angry. The other party did not treat him as a clansman, but he still remembered their friendship and said indifferently, "Please make way, I want to go back and rest." PFFF. Ha ha ha. Ding Yuxuan and Ding Xingwei both laughed loudly. You're admitting defeat so quickly. At the very least, you're still the young master of the Ding clan. As long as your title isn't removed, you're the leader of the younger generation of the Ding clan. A careless sneer also appeared at the corner of Yi Yuan's mouth. Fortunately, she had discovered this early. Otherwise, wouldn't she regret it for the rest of her life when she married over? Ding Feiwen laughed loudly. This mountain that he could only look up to in the past now had not the slightest bit of arrogance. It was also not satisfying to step on him. He spread his legs slightly, and said, "Sure, crawl over from under me, and I won't bully you in the future." He he he. Ding Yuxuan and Ding Xingwei both laughed coldly. The 2 guards also revealed expressions of schadenfreude. They were all joking. Ding Ping's expression was indifferent, and he said, "Don't block my path, or you'll regret it." "Oh, I'd like to see how you'll make me regret it," Ding Feiwen said proudly. Ding Ping strode over, clenching his fists tightly. You really overestimate yourself if you want to force your way through. Ding Feiwen snorted. He had already awakened his spirit base 3 years ago, and had now cultivated to the 9th level of the body refinement tier. If it wasn't for the fact that the barrier of the poly tier was too difficult to break through, he would definitely have already crossed over. But this was not a problem. As long as he entered the Crimson Sun sect, he would receive the guidance and resources of the sect's great elites. Breaking through to the poly tier would definitely be within reach. Get out of the way. Ding Ping was already closing in. Are you worthy? Ding Feiwen clasped his hands together, and took the initiative to attack. He knew that Ding Ping had strange strength since he was young, and could not be underestimated. Ding Ping's battle prowess was equivalent to the 5th level of the body refinement tier. But that was all. He just did not dare to be hit directly by the other. If they really fought, his strength of the 9th level of the body refinement tier would definitely be able to crush the other. Boom! Ding Ping swung his fist, fast and heavy. Peng! Ding Feiwen's palms were forcefully parried, and the fists arrived like a hot knife through butter, smashing into his face. His muscles instantly undulated like water ripples, and his entire body was sent flying, crashing into the back. He crashed heavily into the wall, and then bounced back. He was in so much pain that he was unable to get up for a moment. What was going on? Yi Yuan, Ding Yuxuan, Ding Xingwei, and the 2 guards were all stunned. How was this possible? That was Ding Feiwen, a being in the 9th level of the body refinement tier, and the number 1 elite of the younger generation of the Ding clan. Even if Ding Ping possessed monstrous strength, his strength had long since been surpassed by Ding Feiwen 2 years ago. It was only because the clan valued his potential that he had been allowed to remain in the position of the eldest young master. Who would have thought that Ding Feiwen would actually be defeated with a single punch? Yi Yuan's beautiful eyes were wide open. Could it be that the other had been hiding his strength all along? Otherwise, how could he have defeated Ding Feiwen with a single punch? Even if Ding Feiwen had been careless, and had not used his full strength in that previous attack. Ding Ping withdrew his fist, and strode away, as if nothing had happened. But only he himself knew just how excited he was in his heart. He had endured this punch for a full half a year, and today, he had finally swung it. Swinging a punch was easy, but swinging it to such an effect was far too difficult. Master! He called out in his heart, as if he was calling out to a god, full of piety. The clan's attitude chilled him to the core. Now, he only had one thought, and that was to wait until Ling Han was done with his business, then bring him away from this cold place. His parents, grandparents, and grandparents had all died early. Although he still had 2 uncles, they had basically stopped paying attention to him since half a year ago. Brother Feiwen. After Ding Ping had walked far away, Yi Yuan and the other 2 helped Ding Feiwen up. That brat actually dared to plot against me. I'm going to complain to the elders of the clan and get them to punish that brat according to the clan's rules. Ding Feiwen said through gritted teeth, his expression savage. Plot. Ding Yuxuan and Ding Xingwei hurriedly nodded, and said, that's right. That brat must have plotted against Brother Feiwen. Otherwise, how could he have defeated Brother Feiwen with a single punch? Ding Feiwen immediately glared at the 2 of them. They actually still dared to mention the matter of his defeat? Yi Yuan's beautiful eyes flickered. She had to return home immediately to report this matter. Chapter 874. In the distance, Ling Han could not help but smile, and murmured, let's make the scene livelier. Through the totem, he gave a few orders. If Hai Niu knew that I was messing around like this, she would definitely say that I, the emperor, am not doing my job properly. Ling Han looked at the sky, and missed his family more and more. His parents, son, and beauties, he wondered how they were doing. Ding Feiwen immediately ran to the elders of the family to complain, and naturally said that Ding Ping was despicable and shameless, and had plotted against him with shameful methods. He asked the elders to use the rules of the family to punish Ding Ping severely. This naturally angered the elders of the family. This Ding Ping really did not know how to read the situation. Did he dare to look down on the rules of the family just because his status as the eldest young master had not been abolished? "Call Ding Ping over immediately," one of the elders yelled, appearing rather dissatisfied. Yes. Ding Ping had just returned to his room, and had only taken a bath. He changed into a set of clean clothes, which were the only set he had left. Before he could even sit down, he was called to the elders of the family. He knew that Ding Feiwen must have stirred up trouble, but he had a clear conscience, and followed the other without hesitation. The two of them walked around, and very quickly arrived at the meeting hall of the family. This was the place where the family discussed important matters, and also where rewards and punishments were given out. Greetings to the patriarch, greetings to the elders. Ding Ping was not arrogant, and instead bowed to the elders in the hall, and then stood solemnly with his hands hanging by his legs. "Ding Ping, do you know your crime?" an elder asked. Ding Ping shook his head, and said, "I don't." "How dare you?" Another elder suddenly yelled. "You used a scheme to injure Ding Feiwen, and you still have no intention of reflecting?" In reply to seventh elder, "I did not use a scheme, and I defeated him fair and square. If the elders don't believe me, I can fight Ding Feiwen again." Ding Ping said. "Nonsense." An elder shook his head decisively. How could he possibly believe that Ding Ping had the possibility of defeating Ding Feiwen? This was obviously the other party deliberately quibbling. "There is no need to think anymore. I announce that from today onwards, Ding Ping's status as the first successor of the family will be removed," the patriarch of the Ding family said. As early as half a year ago, they had already considered this. However, when they recalled that Ding Ping's parents and grandparents had all sacrificed themselves for the sake of the clan, they did not immediately carry it out. However, Ding Ping's actions today had exceeded the family's bottom line. They were enraged and no longer hesitated. This was within Ding Ping's expectations, and he did not feel any emotional fluctuations. However, the clan only listened to Ding Feiwen's side of the story, which made him feel aggrieved and angry. This was too unfair. "I'm not convinced," he said. "If you're not satisfied, that's not up to you," said the seventh elder. "Do you think you're still qualified to be the first successor?" Ding Ping said, "It's not that I can't accept this, but the sirs should not listen to Ding Feiwen's side of the story. Do you think we should believe that you can defeat Feiwen with your true ability?" The fourth elder couldn't help laughing. That really was a huge joke. Ding Ping did have some brute strength, but he could only match up to the 5th or 6th layer of body refinement tier at most. How could he compare to Ding Feiwen? "Why not?" Ding Ping retorted. He was still young and impetuous. "Let him come, I want to have a match with him." "Impudence," the fourth elder reprimanded. "Quickly step down." Someone flogged Ding Ping 300 times as a warning to others. "I'm not convinced, I'm not convinced, I'm not convinced," Ding Ping said with his head held high. At this moment, he really wished that he had supreme power to suppress everyone and make them listen to his words. "The clan's decision, who are you to refuse to accept?" The third elder humphed, and said, "Quickly take him away." Report. It was at this moment that a person rushed in. "Why are you so flustered? Don't you know that a clan meeting is currently being held?" The third elder said in displeasure. In reply to clan head and elders, "The Lord City Master has arrived." The servant replied. Shwa, 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 the clan head of the Ding clan and all the elders stood up. The Lord City Master was a high and mighty figure, an existence that they could only look up to. It should be known that the strongest elite of the Ding clan was only in the spiritual ocean tier, and the Lord City Master was an elite of the flower blossom tier. Quick, quick, go and welcome him. How could the clan head of the Ding clan sit still? He hurriedly led a group of elders out to welcome him. What kind of figure was this Lord City Master? Why did he suddenly come in person? Was this a blessing or a curse for the Ding clan? They went out to welcome him, and saw a tall man standing in front of the Ding clan's door. He looked to be only in his 40s, but exuded a terrifying aura that made them feel as if their eyes were about to go blind. To them, flower blossom tear cultivators were gods, able to soar in the skies and tunnel underground, and live for 300 years. They were far too inferior to minor characters like them, so how could they possibly allow him to come in person? We pay our respects to the Lord City Master. They hurriedly knelt down, extremely respectful. The City Master's surname was Lu, and his name was Zhenshi. After receiving Ling Han's totem sound transmission, he immediately broke into a run and ran over, not even having the time to bring a single attendant. He laughed, stretched out a hand to help him up, and said, "Great news for the Ding clan, I have come especially to offer my congratulations." Great news, where was the news? The members of the Ding clan all wore expressions of bewilderment. Why were they completely clueless? Could it be that everyone still doesn't know that an elite of your clan has been taken as a disciple by a mighty figure? Lu Zhenshi asked with a smile. What? The members of the Ding clan were all shocked. To be addressed as a mighty figure by the Lord City Master, what kind of status was that? Spiritual infant tier? That's right, wasn't Ding Feiwen just taken as a disciple by the Crimson Sun sect? This bastard brat had obviously been taken as a disciple by an elite of the spiritual infant tier, yet he actually just casually said that he had become a disciple of the Crimson Sun sect. Really, how could he be so humble? He still had to be proud when he should be. The members of the Ding clan thought that they had understood, and all laughed joyfully. TSK, TSK, even the Lord City Master had personally come to offer his congratulations. The Ding clan was going to be rich, going to soar. Quick, quick, call Feiwen over, the patriarch of the Ding clan said hurriedly. In a short while, Ding Feiwen came over, but he had suffered a punch from Ding Ping, and now there was a black circle around his eye, causing his image to take a great hit. This made the corners of Lu Zhenshi's mouth twitch slightly. How could the disciple taken by that lord be of such character? But since the Ding clan had invited this person, he naturally did not doubt him. He hurriedly said with a smile, "Young Master Ding, congratulations. Being able to be taken as a disciple by that lord, I will have to ask you to take good care of me in the future." Ding Feiwen was baffled. The elders of the clan were too flattering, and the high and mighty Lord City Master was also lowering his own status, treating him as some mighty figure. What was going on? He had indeed entered into the Crimson Sun sect, but he had not been scammed by any mighty figure. Could it be that there had been a divine twist in the plot? Chapter 875. Ling Han was a little surprised. For a mystery realm to go through so much trouble, it could be seen that this mystery realm was quite extraordinary, which was why all the great forces had made so many preparations. Then come, when the mystery realm opens, I'll follow you guys, he said with a smile. Which one of these people wasn't a descendant of a great clan, and they were very familiar with this Yellow Spring mystery realm. Ling Han didn't believe that the forces behind them wouldn't operate on this mystery realm. Perhaps, when they entered, they would be accompanied by such people. Hee hee. Xiao Sisi and the others all laughed. As the saying goes, there's no need to resort to insinuations in front of an honest person. They were very clear about those secrets, and that was because they had also done so. Brother Ling, if you can join our Thousand Frost Majestic Empire, we can state any condition, Xiao Sisi said, her bright eyes twinkling, exuding a hint of charm. These kinds of words, coupled with this kind of look, she was just short of saying that even becoming a vassal of the Majestic Empire was completely negotiable. Hee hee, Brother Ling, I have a younger sister who is reputed to be an outstanding beauty whose beauty can cause the downfall of empires and cities. She's a perfect match for Brother Ling, Duan said hurriedly. I can guarantee that I can help Brother Ling obtain the title of king. If you join the tyrannical Summer Majestic Empire, we'll be blood brothers, Xia Yuanke said. Ling Han had already proven his talent, and was worth this price. Although Ling Han had offended Yang Hao was only in the Sun-Moon tier, and his background wasn't stronger than theirs. It could be said that as long as Yang Hao hadn't advanced into the Eternal River tier, what need was there for them to be afraid of? Putting aside whether Yang Hao could advance into the Eternal River tier, even if he could, how many years would it take for that to happen? Even if Yang Hao had used less than 1,000 years to reach the high extreme of the Sun-Moon tier, the Heavenly Body tier was already a super great threshold, and there was no need to mention the Eternal River tier. There was only one Eternal River tier in this galaxy, so the difficulty level could be imagined. Thus, his advantage of being several hundred years ahead of Ling Han in terms of cultivation time would soon disappear. In the future, every step he took would easily take tens of thousands of years, so a few hundred years was really nothing. Meanwhile, Ling Han laughed along with them. He had his own force, so how could he possibly join another empire? Moreover, even if he wanted to join any majestic empire, it would be the Chaotic Star's majestic empire. Even the Empress was his. At this moment, he naturally only said these words in his mind. Otherwise, it was possible that the Eternity Sky Emperor, the Jade Drop Emperor, and even a few of the 7 generals would come to the Majestic Heavens sect to hunt him down. After the banquet ended, Ling Han, the Rain Emperor, Feng Peyun, Murong Qing, and Helian Tianyun gathered together, and began to drink again. Now that Ling Han had arrived, they could naturally return to the reincarnation tree to cultivate again. Meanwhile, Ling Han took a break from the hustle and bustle, and left far away with Shui Yenyu. He sat down in a cluster of flowers at the side. "Wife, our son is so lucky," Ling Han said as he placed his hands on the large breasts of the great bewitching beauty. There was a look of admiration on his face. In comparison, Ling Jianxue was really pitiful. Helian Xuanxue's chest was completely flat, and it was really lucky that her son hadn't starved to death. Though Shui Yenyu already had the most intimate relationship with him, she was still very thin-skinned. She couldn't help but blush, and she turned her head to bite his wrist. She chided, "Little pervert." Her beautiful eyes were filled with boundless affection. Ling Han's heart swayed, and he said, "Thankfully, I'm a thick-skinned person. Otherwise, how could such a beautiful teacher become the mother of my child?" Shui Yenyu struggled lightly, and said in annoyance, "When you said this, if you hadn't been so lecherously groping me, perhaps I would have been moved. But now, I only want to bite you to death, you damn pervert. Are you born in the year of the dog? You really want to bite?" Ling Han said with a smile. His eyes swiveled, and he said, "Since you like biting so much, let me tell you a new way to play so that you can bite to your heart's content." He leaned close to Shui Yenyu's ear and whispered softly, causing Shui Yenyu's eyes to instantly widen. She couldn't help but jump up, and instantly straddled Ling Han's body. Damn pervert, shameless and vulgar." Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "So it turns out that wife likes to take the initiative. Come, your husband will let you do whatever you want today." Shui Yenyu pinched him fiercely. Why did this guy always have to tease her until she was unbearably embarrassed? Gasp, "I say, wife, where are you pinching?" Ling Han deliberately bared his teeth, and inhaled sharply. Shui Yenyu was startled, and only then did she realize that she had actually pinched Ling Han's protruding part in her anger and embarrassment. Instantly, she was too embarrassed to show her face. How could she still dare to pinch Ling Han? "Hee, wife, I like this side of you. You're obviously extremely flirtatious, yet you're also extremely thin-skinned," Ling Han said with a smile. "Pervert." After his battle with Wu Zhe and Yang Hao, Ling Han naturally became a celebrity in the Majestic Heaven sect. Although Hu Feiyun's performance was more eye-catching, everyone knew that she could send a heavenly body tier elite flying with a single palm strike because she had the mark of an elite on her body. She herself was actually not that impressive. The next morning, an endless stream of people came to visit Ling Han. They all wanted to befriend him and forge a relationship with him. Ling Han didn't put on airs, however. Instead, he chatted and joked with each and every one of them, forming a good relationship with them. That was because in his eyes, all of these people were potential customers. Those that could enter the majestic heaven sect were basically all descendants of powerful forces. The only thing they didn't lack was money. If he wanted to earn money, he would naturally walk the path of alchemy, and the people he would sell it to were these people. Ling Han chuckled. His attitude was practically amiable, causing all of these people to feel flattered. They hadn't thought that Ling Han would be so easygoing. Meanwhile, Shui Yenyu shook her head at the side. She understood Ling Han very well, so she naturally knew what he was planning. She thought to herself, these people have all been treated like fat sheep by Ling Han, yet they're still grateful to him. As expected, they've been sold by him, and they're still counting the money for him. She then thought of herself. Hadn't she also willingly been deceived by this guy? This sweetheart. She was both embarrassed and sweet. Ahem, is this senior brother Han? A young man in a green robe walked in. His eyes first swept over Shui Yenyu, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. After taking another look, he turned to Ling Han. Ling Han was already displeased with him, so he calmly said, I'm Han Lin. The young man in the green robe smiled proudly, and said, I'm Gai Yongxi, and I'm from the Gao faction. What do you mean by good faction or bad faction? Ling Han hated it the most when people put on airs in front of him. That guy's arrogance annoyed him just looking at it. Gai Yongxi was unconcerned, and he said, Senior brother Han, you still don't know, right? Our majestic heaven sect is divided into many factions. Our founder took in a total of 9 personal disciples. Thus, the factions of these 9 personal disciples are the strongest, and our Gao faction is one of them. Ling Han was slightly surprised. Venerable Trinity had no desire to contend for supremacy, yet his 9 disciples were unwilling to stay put. Otherwise, they wouldn't have needed to form factions. When Venerable Trinity passed away, this galaxy would definitely be plunged into chaos, and the territories would be redrawn. He calmly asked, so what? A sliver of anger appeared on Gai Yongxi's face. He hadn't heard him say that he was from the Gao faction, and that it was founded by Venerable Trinity's personal disciple. However, when he thought of his own mission, he forcibly suppressed his anger, and said, I've come under the orders of young master to invite senior brother Han to join our Gao faction. Chapter 876. Ding Feiwen's whole body trembled. How was this possible? How was this possible? Wasn't the other a piece of trash who only had some brute strength? What right did he have to gain the favor of a great figure that even a supreme elite like Jia Wu had to kneel to pay his respects? Even Jia Wu was like this, so what did he, a mere disciple of the Flaming Sun sect, amount to? Ling Han, this name seems a bit familiar. Someone muttered. Yeah, I seem to have heard it somewhere. He should be an elite. Nonsense, if he wasn't an elite, how could Lord Jia pay such respects? Everyone discussed in low voices. This scene was really too shocking, and also made everyone curious about who this Ling Han was. Jia Wu stood up, snorted, and said, How dare you, dare to talk nonsense about the current emperor, do you want to die? In an instant, the surroundings were silent. The current emperor, that's right, wasn't the current emperor surnamed Ling Han? Speaking of this emperor, who wouldn't be impressed? He unified the 4 regions of the Middle State, and even incorporated the 4 seas into his territory, the first person since ancient times. Ding Ping actually became a disciple of the current emperor. Holy shit! Yi Yuan's beautiful eyes immediately lit up. This was a real rich husband. If she could marry Ding Ping, what kind of status would she have? Wouldn't even Jia Wu have to kneel to pay his respects? Not to mention others, even Ding Ping was shocked. He only guessed that Ling Han definitely had a great status, but never would he have guessed that the other was the emperor of the Great Ling Empire. This was too unimaginable. The number one person in the world actually came to such a small place like theirs. My lords, please rise. Ding Ping forced himself to be calm, thinking that he definitely couldn't let down his master's reputation. Thank you, young master. Jia Wu and Lu Zhenshi both said respectfully. Though they couldn't see anything special about Ding Ping, in terms of conduct, Ding Ping was hundreds of times stronger than Ding Feiwen. As expected, this was the real master. The other people of the Ding clan finally realized that Ding Ping had become a little cow this time, bouncing and bouncing, awesome to the heavens. Quick, 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 they had to quickly correct the mistakes they had made before. Ding Feiwen, do you know your crimes? The patriarch of the Ding clan immediately shouted, walking menacingly towards Ding Feiwen. This guy had actually dared to order him around just now. If he really was the disciple of a great elite of the Flaming Sun sect, he would have swallowed his anger, but now, oh, Granny Pit. Just wait to be dealt with. Ding Feiwen knelt down with a thud. He also knew that he had been misunderstood and was in deep trouble. Who would have thought that Ding Ping would be so awesome as to acknowledge Ling Han as his teacher? This was why everyone had misunderstood him and praised him so highly. But the higher they praised him, the harder he fell. Oh no, he was done for. I beg Lord Family Head to spare me. He was already crying, his vision completely black. Who was the person he had offended? The disciple of the current Son of Heaven, the person that even Jia Wu had to kneel before. Ding Ping, how are you going to deal with this? The patriarch of the Ding clan hurriedly asked Ding Ping, a smile on his face. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, his fowls and dogs also rise to heaven. With Ding Ping's reputation, then wouldn't the Great Ling Empire still be under their control? Ding Ping was neither arrogant nor rash. He said, do as you should. There are family rules. His horizons were instantly broadened, and he disdained to bicker with Ding Feiwen. However, disdain didn't mean that he would let Ding Feiwen off. This person was petty and used his position to avenge a personal grudge. He naturally needed to be punished. The patriarch of the Ding clan was in a bit of a pickle. The rules of the clan were also decided by the people. His punishment should be more lenient, more severe. He believed that all saints would have a temper, and with Ding Feiwen's attitude towards Ding Ping previously, no one would be able to tolerate it, right? Moreover, he was also holding back his anger. Take him away first and lock him in the dungeon. We will deal with him later. Yes, Lord Family Head. Ding Feiwen screamed, and hurriedly begged Ding Ping for mercy. He said, Brother Ping, save me. For the sake of our past friendship, I beg you to save me. I will definitely do anything for you in the future. The members of the Ding clan were all contemptuous. Was there such a good thing in the world? Doing anything for the disciple of the monarch, that was still 100 times higher than the status of a sect master like Jia Wu, right? This was called begging for mercy. That was too shameless. Ding Ping was naturally unmoved. He had already seen through this despicable person's character. Ding Feiwen screamed miserably and begged for mercy, but no one paid him any attention. He was dragged out, his voice growing softer and softer until it couldn't be heard anymore. Brother Ping. Yi Yuan walked over, her beautiful eyes filled with adoration. Ding Ping glanced at her, his heart indescribably calm. In the past, whenever he saw this woman, happiness would rise in his heart and he would become excited. However, ever since he saw through her true colors, his first love had also come to an end, leaving behind only a bitter memory. In just one day, he experienced the ups and downs of life, and it also made him mature quickly. He did not pay any attention, he only said to Jia Wu and Lu Zhenshi, many thanks to the two Darren for coming to visit Zaixia, Zaixia is very grateful. Were it not for this, he could not avoid receiving 300 strokes of the cane. Hee hee, of course, of course. Jia Wu and Lu Jinshe hurriedly said modestly. Though Ding Ping's abilities were extremely weak now, since he could be taken as a disciple by Ling Han, he would definitely become an elite that could shake the world in the future. Yi Yuan was naturally unwilling to lose such a wealthy husband, and kept talking at the side, all of their experiences together in the past, trying to evoke Ding Ping's memories and rekindle their old feelings. She was even more resentful. If she could come a day later, then Ding Ping would only think that she had been forced by her clan to break off the engagement with him. A person like her would only blame others, and had no intention of self-reflection. Yet Ding Ping had already given up on her, and paid no attention to her. In the end, he was so annoyed that he chased the 3 members of the Yi clan out. However, Yi Yuan obviously would not give up just like that, and would definitely come again in a few days. After talking for a while, Jia Wu and Lu Jinshe both took their leave, and said that no matter what Ding Ping encountered, he could look for them to resolve it. These words were naturally for the Ding clan to hear. They had better keep their eyes open, this was the disciple of the current emperor. Next, the Ding clan naturally worshipped Ding Ping like an ancestor. Ling Han did not pay any attention to this. He was only searching for the whereabouts of Corpse Boss. For him to appear here, it meant that there was either some treasure here that was worthy for him to appear, or the remnants of the 1,000 Corpse sect were nearby. The next day, Ding Ping came to find him. His expression had become even more respectful, and there was also an intense expression of gratitude on his face. His fate had been changed by Ling Han. Without Ling Han, he would still be that fallen prodigy, and the trash of today. Ling Han did not say much, and merely guided him in cultivating the 9 dragons tyrant body art. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Ling Han suddenly opened his eyes from his cross-legged position. He sensed a powerful aura. Though it was very obscure, how could it possibly escape his senses? Corpse Boss appeared. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 877. Ling Han grabbed Ding Ping, and with a flash, he disappeared from where he stood. Ding Ping felt his vision blur, and found himself suddenly appearing in a forest. He identified it, and found out that this was Ma Junshan, at least 100 miles away from where they were originally. With just one step, he crossed 100 miles. He couldn't help but be speechless. Master's strength far exceeded his imagination. In front of the 2 of them was a tall and slender middle-aged man. He was gentle like jade, and he gave others a good impression of him at first sight. Is he the person Master is waiting for? Ding Ping thought to himself. Brother Corpse Boss, long time no see. Ling Han clasped his fists in greeting. Although the other was a member of the 1,000 Corpse sect, Ling Han still had a good impression of him. Ding Ping's heart instantly froze, then relaxed. Ling Han's relaxed attitude meant that the other should be a friend and not an enemy. However, being able to make Master call him brother, the other must be a top-notch figure in the world. He only thought that Ling Han called him brother sure, or else his hair would definitely stand on end. Corpse Boss couldn't help but reveal a bitter smile, and said, "It's all my fault for being greedy and revealing my tracks. However, Brother Ling is truly impressive, your eyes and ears are completely beyond my imagination. I'm confident that I won't be discovered when I come out to buy wine." Ling Han smiled slightly. Those who didn't establish a nation obviously wouldn't know the wondrous use of totems. Even Ma Duobao didn't know the correct posture to establish a nation when he established 2 dynasties. He said, "Brother Corpse Boss, I only want to know an answer." Corpse Boss sighed, but turned his gaze to Ding Ping. His eyes lit up, and he said, "This brat's bone structure seems to be different from others." "Naturally, he's the disciple I took in," Ling Han said with a smile. Still as confident as ever. Corpse Boss also smiled, but shook his head, and said, "I'm afraid I can't give you that answer." "I haven't said what I want to ask," Ling Han said with a smile. "Brother Ling, are you looking down on my intelligence? Corpse Boss said with some displeasure. Ling Han raised his hand and said with a smile, all right. Brother Corpse Senior, why don't we make a bet? If you can block 10 moves from me, I'll let you go, but if you can't, you'll have to tell me where the remnants of the 1,000 Corpse sect are. Corpse Boss couldn't help but sigh ruefully. The first time he met Ling Han, he'd made a wager for him to block 10 moves. As long as Ling Han could block them, he wouldn't kill Ling Han. But only a few years had passed, and now it was the other party's turn to make the same bet. Is there such a huge difference in strength between the two sides? Corpse Boss didn't believe him, and said in a low voice, I have already raised my cultivation to the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, and awakened a mystical power. My current battle prowess can reach 15 stars, and you are confident that you can defeat me within 10 moves? How will we know if we don't try? Ling Han smiled. He had been training in seclusion for the past year. Other than himself, no one knew how strong he had become. 15 stars. As long as he wanted to, he could instantly defeat him. Corpse Boss's expression flickered. If it were someone else, then they'd bet, and if they lost, they could go back on their word. If a Shattering Void tier elite wanted to run, who could stop them? But he was different. His personality was that of a man of his word. He wasn't someone who would betray his teammates, and at the same time, he was someone who would keep his promises. Thus, he had to consider the consequences if he lost. This made him very conflicted. On one hand, he absolutely didn't believe that he couldn't block 10 moves from Ling Han, and on the other hand, he had to consider that 1 in 10,000 possibility. Only now did Ding Ping know that Ling Han and this person were actually standing on opposite sides. He couldn't help but be surprised that an opponent could be so amiable. Ling Han snickered, and said, what, Brother Corpse Boss doesn't dare. Actually, with Brother Corpse Boss's ability, why stay in the 1,000 Corpse sect? When the sky opens, the world is vast, and where can't you go? Corpse Boss's pupils shrank, and he said, Ma Duo Bao just failed to open the sky over a year ago, and you want to open the sky again. Aren't you afraid of dying? Ling Han laughed loudly. As a man, so what if I die a heroic death? Moreover, why can't I succeed? Corpse Boss was silent, and only after a while did he say, based on your determination to open the sky, I agree to your conditions. Ding Ping, meanwhile, was in a daze. What opening the sky? Did he mean opening the sky? How would the sky be opened? Moreover, it seemed like this matter was extremely dangerous, and he might die. This made him extremely worried. Ling Han raised his right hand, and said, then, Brother Corpse Boss, take this. He didn't need to prepare at all, and directly delivered a palm strike. Hiss. Corpse Boss, however, was shocked. The power of this palm strike surpassed 10 stars, too terrifying. Normally, even if one cultivated to the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, their power would only be equivalent to battle prowess of 9 stars of Shattering Void tier. Then, using martial arts techniques and secret techniques, their battle prowess would be able to break through 9 stars, reaching 10 stars, 11 stars, or even 12 stars. However, the stronger one's power was, the higher their battle prowess would naturally rise. For example, he was in the peak stage of the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, and his power would reach 10 stars of Shattering Void tier. Using secret techniques, he could increase his battle prowess by 4 stars. This was very impressive. But what about Ling Han? He'd clearly just stepped into the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, and that aura that hadn't stabilized yet couldn't be more obvious. He'd just stepped into the 9th layer of the Shattering Void tier, and his power already surpassed 10 stars. Then, when he reached the true peak stage of the Shattering Void tier and solidified his tier, to what extent would his power increase? 12 stars, or even 13 stars. This was a fucking monster. However, shock was shock. Corpse Boss was an elite of 2 lifetimes, after all, and his reaction wasn't slow at all. He immediately crossed his hands, which turned into sharp claws, and clawed at Ling Han. Multiple patterns appeared on his hands, which actually looked a bit like the hand of a god. Although that skeletal hand was snatched away by Yi Shuang Shuang, Corpse Boss still comprehended some mysteries from it. Fortunately, Yi Shuang Shuang made her move early. If she'd encountered Corpse Boss now, then who would have won and who would have lost would be another matter. Ling Han, however, didn't care at all. His right hand sunk down, and Wang, a terrifying power surged out, trying to suppress Corpse Boss. Without the slightest bit of finesse, he directly crushed with power. It was just that domineering. Pang! The two's weapons clashed, and an extremely strong power burst forth, forming a shock wave that spread out in all directions. If they were to clash head-on, not only would the entire mountain region be destroyed, even the faraway cities wouldn't be able to escape the calamity. He was too strong. However, after these powers spread out 30 meters away, they were immediately blocked as if there was an invisible wall. Power of the Nation. Ling Han didn't use Power of the Nation to strengthen himself, but instead turned it into a prison, controlling all the overflowing power in an extremely small area. What? Corpse Boss exclaimed, his eyes filled with shock as if he'd seen a ghost. Strictly speaking, he was a ghost. Your power reached 13 stars. Corpse Boss exclaimed. How is this possible? In the shattering void tier, a single star was a world of difference. Relying solely on power to reach 13 stars of battle prowess, this was practically freakish. What was even more terrifying was that Ling Han still hadn't used Power of the Nation to strengthen himself. Ling Han smiled faintly, and said, recently, my tier has mellowed out a bit, and my body arts have also made some progress. Unknowingly, my power has increased again, sorry. Chapter 878. Sorry your sister. Corpse Boss felt like he was going crazy. Was there really such a freak? Just perfecting his tier and improving the level of his physical arts, and his strength began to soar again, surpassing 1 star as easy as eating. Ling Han was also speechless. His current strength was mainly boosted by the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art, and after crossing into the Shattering Void tier, this physical art finally burst forth with terrifying might. At its peak, it could reach the power of 9 true dragons. This wasn't a fake true dragon like Hellion Tianyun. In the divine realm, only dragons that reached the Genesis tier could be called true dragons. The power of 9 true dragons, how terrifying was that? Previously, helping Ding Ping cleanse his marrow was also a form of training for him, and added with the 3 days of small seclusion afterward, his physical arts suddenly improved by leaps and bounds. Now, his brute force was at least 3 times stronger than origin power, and this 9 Dragons Tyrant body art finally revealed its might. According to Ling Han's calculations, if origin power was cultivated to the extreme and could reach the power of a true dragon, then his brute force could at most reach 9 times the power of origin power. Of course, this was also because the origin power cultivation technique that he had cultivated was not powerful enough, so he had only reached the basic level of 1, or perhaps he had not even reached 1. According to that, without relying on the Power of the Nation, the power of a living being could also reach Shattering Void tier 20 stars? Ling Han suddenly fell into deep thought. Why must one rely on the Power of the Nation to reach the extreme? Why couldn't it be an individual that could cultivate to the extreme? In the world of martial art, what they pursued was individual strength, and you couldn't run around with a country on your back. He suddenly came to a realization. Power of the Nation could only be used as an aid, and not as a means to rely on. He wanted to cultivate his strength to Shattering Void tier 20 stars, the true limit. The corner of Corpse Boss's mouth twitched. After Ling Han delivered an attack, it was as if he had become a fool. What kind of contempt was this? I'm indeed not your match, but for you to be so distracted like this, isn't it a bit too much? Ling Han, he roared angrily. Ling Han came back to his senses, and couldn't help but smile. Sorry, I suddenly thought of something. Distracted in battle, what the hell were you thinking? What did you think of? Corpse Boss couldn't help but be curious. I'm thinking how to increase my power to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier. Ling Han didn't hide it. He really wanted to communicate with someone, especially a powerhouse of 2 lifetimes like Corpse Boss. Unfortunately, he couldn't remember the matters of his previous life. Corpse Boss inhaled sharply, and said, Are you sure you're not talking about battle prowess of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, but power of 20 stars of Shattering Void tier? Not bad. Ling Han nodded. You pervert. Corpse Boss pointed. Hey, brother Corpse Boss, even though we've only met once, we had a pleasant conversation. Is it really appropriate for you to scold me like this? Ling Han laughed. If your power can charge up to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier, then how high would your battle prowess be? Corpse Boss rolled his eyes. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Ling Han laughed heartily and said, Everyone should have some dreams, right? Corpse Boss stared blankly for a moment, then nodded solemnly and said, Yes. Then he shook his arms and said, 9 more moves. Ling Han chuckled, and stretched out his right hand again, pressing towards Corpse Boss. Corpse Boss faced the attack, and shouted, Ling Han, bring out your full ability, don't make me look down on you. Is that so? Ling Han used his other hand to rub his nose. All right. He used the earth overturning seal, and then operated the thunderclap 9th heaven. Hung, his right hand emitted a dazzling golden light, as well as blazing white lightning. Pang! His palm pressed down, and Corpse Boss instantly disappeared. Brother Corpse Boss, are you alright? Ling Han asked as he withdrew his hand. Corpse Boss crawled up, coughing up blood continuously. His face was desolate as he muttered, I actually couldn't even block one move. One had to know that he was in existence with battle prowess of 15 stars of Shattering Void tier, and if it wasn't for Ling Han showing mercy, that strike just now would have been enough to take his life. The difference was too great. After being at a loss for a while, his gaze gradually became resolute. If Ling Han succeeded in splitting open the skies, then he would be able to enter the immortal realm, and he would definitely be able to find a way to become even stronger. Just as Ling Han said, what if his strength was increased to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier? The people of the Thousand Corpse sect are hiding 200 miles east of this place. There's an ancient tomb there, Corpse Boss said, staring at Ling Han, and said, the next time we meet, I hope we can fight to our heart's content. All right. Ling Han agreed readily. His impression of Corpse Boss had always been very good. Corpse Boss stared at Ling Han for a while, then turned and left. Ding Ping's blood was boiling at the side, and he wished he could possess such battle prowess now, so that he could have a vigorous battle. Ling Han smiled, and said, the next time that person comes to challenge Master, you'll be the one to accept the challenge. Ding Ping was startled at first, and immediately became so excited that he almost fainted. He felt his whole body's fighting spirit soar into the skies, and some unknown emotion awakened in his body, making him feel extremely heroic. He half knelt on the ground, and said, Disciple definitely won't disappoint Master. Ling Han nodded, and said, Now, it's time to clear away the last trouble before splitting open the skies. He brought Ding Ping, and after a few steps, they arrived at the ancient tomb that Corpse Boss spoke of. The Thousand Corpse sect cultivated corpse arts, and their whole body was covered in corpse chi. Once buried underground, no one could possibly distinguish them from corpses. Thus, the tomb was obviously the best hiding place for them. Unless Ling Han had the determination to dig out all the tombs in the world, it was absolutely impossible to find them out of thin air. But now that he had an insider, it was different. Without another word, Ling Han directly used his arm as a bow and origin power as an arrow, activating the annihilating dragon star arrow. He aimed at the ancient tomb from afar, loosened his hand, and Xiao, the origin power arrow shot out. Hung, it shot into the group of ancient tombs. It was best for the annihilating dragon star arrow to have a physical bow and arrow as its base. Only then could the shot unleash its strongest might. However, Ling Han was too strong now, and he didn't need a physical bow and arrow to unleash great might. This was a true secret art of the divine realm, Hong. The origin power arrow shot down, and the entire group of ancient tombs instantly disappeared, turning into a deep crater. Xiao, 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 a dozen people soared into the sky. The 9th Underworld King, Corpse 2, Rong Huan Xian, and 9 skinny old men wrapped in corpse qi, appearing in the middle of the night would definitely scare people to death. Under this attack, everyone below heaven tier was completely annihilated. Ling Han. When it came to Ling Han, Rong Huan Xian immediately gritted his teeth. He and Ling Han could be considered old rivals, tangling with each other from the very beginning in the desolate north until now. However, aside from the first time when he had the upper hand, he was always suppressed by Ling Han, which deeply pierced a thorn in his heart. One had to know that he now advanced into heaven tier, and such advancement speed could be said to be terrifying, but compared to Ling Han, it really wasn't worth mentioning. In front of Ling Han, he was dim and dull, and could only serve as a pitiful foil. He refused to accept this. He was also someone favored by heaven and earth. Phone reading was more refreshing. Chapter 879. Interesting Romance. Thousand Source True Fluid. The notionless saint pondered for a moment before saying, after an eternal river tier immortal dies, the blood of an eternal river tier immortal will slowly lose its murderous aura over a long period of time. Moreover, if its essence hasn't completely dissipated, it's possible that it'll form thousand source true fluid. To immortals below the eternal river tier, this is a precious treasure. Every drop of thousand source true fluid contains the comprehension of the great Tao of heaven and earth of an eternal river tier immortal. It can help immortals advance to the next cultivation level, so it's quite impressive. No wonder Gao Huang was so desperate for thousand source true fluid. After all, he had already reached the peak stage of the sun-moon tier. However, how difficult was it to reach the heavenly body tier? Even his father, who was also at the heavenly body tier, couldn't do so. After Gao Huang consumed 3 drops of thousand source true fluid, he might have a chance to break through to the heavenly body tier. Although Ling Han hadn't met Gao Huang before, he could tell from his actions that he was definitely a greedy person. Moreover, since breaking through to the heavenly body tier was an important matter, the more thousand source true fluid, the better. Yet, Gao Huang actually said that he only wanted 3 drops. What did this mean? The difficulty of obtaining thousand source true fluid was definitely astonishingly high. Thus, even with Gao Huang's greed, he still only wanted 3 drops. Sun-moon tier cultivators can't enter the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm. Thus, he searched everywhere for elites at the Mountain River tier and had them search for thousand source true fluid for him. Ling Han shook his head, and said, he's really an extremely selfish person. What right does he have to make others give him treasures? Ling Han couldn't be bothered to get angry, and he began to concoct alchemical pills again. Before entering the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm, he definitely had to upgrade the Divine Demon Sword to level 4. This would require a large amount of true origin stones. This time, Ling Han didn't spend all his time on alchemical pill concoction. He would take out some time to cultivate and improve his origin power and body arts. Personal strength was the most important thing. However, after only half a month, Ling Han was forced to stop concocting alchemical pills. Yuan Chenghe was about to break through. He couldn't let Yuan Chenghe appear for no reason and face his heavenly tribulation in the sect. Thus, he left the sect by himself, and drew out the cloud-piercing shuttle to a faraway place. He released Yuan Chenghe and let him face his heavenly tribulation. Because Yuan Chenghe's foundation was really solid, and added with the fact that Yuan Chenghe's natural talent was extremely extraordinary, he naturally easily passed his heavenly tribulation, and allowed Ling Han to have another immortal by his side. There was no problem for Ken Yi to pass his heavenly tribulation, but it was a bit difficult for Guang Yuan and Zhu Wujiu. It couldn't be helped. These two people's natural talent was really a bit ordinary. In a small world, they could just barely be called geniuses, but normally speaking, the flower blossom tier should be the limit, but now they were pushed to the shattering void tier by Ling Han, and could even possibly break through to the immortal level. This made them somewhat unable to control their own power. They could only stop at the mountain river tier, right? Ling Han thought. Ken Yi and Yuan Chenghe still had room to advance, but if it was Guang Yuan and Zhu Wujiu, then so be it. He returned to the Majestic Heaven sect, and continued to cultivate in seclusion. When the 1-month deadline was up, he brought the newly concocted alchemical pills to the Mo clan establishment. So much godly metal. Ling Han was astonished. The spatial spirit tool that Han Hua handed over was filled with godly metal. Although he knew that alchemical pills were very profitable, could they really earn this much? I reported young Master Han's matter to the clan, and the clan gave me an order, and that is to complete this task for young Master Han with all my might, Han Hua said with a smile. I have been collecting godly metal for this past month. Moreover, the clan has also mobilized people, and will transport godly metal from other places. As long as young Master Han doesn't say that it's enough, the godly metal won't stop. Ling Han smiled, and said, aren't you afraid that I won't be able to concoct enough alchemical pills to repay you? As long as young Master Han is happy, what's a mere godly metal? Han Hua said proudly. It could be said that the Mo clan was the largest business in this galaxy. Although Han Hua's words were very arrogant, they indeed had the confidence to back them up. Ling Han was astonished. The Mo clan actually valued him so much. They had already invested so much in him before he had even advanced to the Sun-Moon tier. It should be known that there was no lack of prodigies in this world. It was very easy for prodigies to wither halfway through their journey. It could only be said that the Mo clan was truly rich and overbearing. They were able to withstand a 1 in a million loss. Moreover, once Ling Han became a great elite of the heavenly body tier in the future, the returns that the Mo clan could obtain would also be astonishing. If Ling Han could advance another step and reach the eternal river tier, the Mo clan would truly soar into the sky. Many thanks. Ling Han didn't act pretentious. He was confident that he could reach the heavenly body tier, the eternal river tier, or even the Genesis tier. The investment that the Mo clan had made today would definitely reap great rewards in the future. After returning to the Majestic Heaven sect, Ling Han began to increase the quality of the Divine Demon Sword. It had only been less than half a day, and all the godly metal had been turned into scrap metal. Meanwhile, the Divine Demon Sword was still a long way from level 4. The higher the level, the more godly metal would be needed to advance. Moreover, it was not an ordinary amount. Ling Han could only wait a little longer. Thankfully, there were still over 3 months' time before the opening of the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm. The Majestic Heaven sect also began to distribute the slots to enter the Mystery Realm. Aside from the disciples of the Mountain River tier that could enter, there was also a portion of the slots that would be distributed to those outside the sect. As for what price they would have to pay in exchange, only the person in charge of this matter would know. Ling Han did not care about all this either. He simply worked hard on his cultivation and alchemy. The demon power essence had already been mostly used up. Thankfully, Ling Han himself was the alchemy emperor, and used alchemical pills to nourish his martial arts. Though the effects were not as astonishing as the demon power essence, the advantage was that he could concoct them himself, and there was no limit to the quantity. Good news came one after another. As the Mo clan establishment continued to send him an endless stream of godly metal, the divine demon sword finally advanced to level 4, and now he needed level 4 godly metal to continue advancing the quality of the divine demon sword. Let alone the requirement of advancing by 1 level, the price that he would have to pay for this would definitely soar tenfold. Thus, Ling Han did not want the Mo clan establishment to work for free. Instead, he planned to first pay off the debt that he owed, and then consider purchasing a large amount of level 4 godly metal. He had pinned his hopes of making a fortune on this trip to the arcane realm. If he could get his hands on a few secret techniques and sell them, he would definitely earn a lot of money. Additionally, he had also reached the middle stage of the pinnacle level, and his power had advanced to 8 stars. This was extremely astonishing. Who told him to have the reincarnation tree? He had enough time to comprehend his cultivation level. The Rain Emperor, Ding Ping, Shui Yenyu, Hu Feiyun, and the others had also improved significantly. The most impressive was still the Rain Emperor, who had shockingly reached the peak stage of the medium extreme. Even with Ling Han's alchemical pills and the help of the reincarnation tree in comprehending Tao, this was still incredibly shocking. It was as if the Rain Emperor was born for cultivation. Moreover, the higher his cultivation level, the more terrifying his explosive power was. Meanwhile, Feng Peyun, Ding Ping, and the others had only just advanced into the medium extreme, and the gap between them and the Rain Emperor was growing wider and wider. Shui Yenyu had also reached the peak stage of the high extreme. As for Hu Feiyun, because she was a clone of Empress Yuan Xing, as long as she cultivated seriously, her rate of improvement was similarly astonishing. She had already advanced into the peak stage of the consummate level, and could attempt to break through to the pinnacle level. Meanwhile, the Yellow Spring Mystery Realm had finally opened. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.